academic session with nearly 200 teachers and almost the same number of non-teaching staff currently running UG and PG courses in science, humanities, commerce, law, and mass communication and journalism. The latest feather in the cap is that Shia PG College has proudly received NAC A accreditation. With this, we move ahead and begin and give an auspicious beginning to our conference. I would like to welcome Maulana Dr. Yasub Abbas, Secretary, Majlis-e-Ulema, Shia PG College, to mark the beginning of the program by enlightening us with words of wisdom. हम आपसे गुजारिश करेंगे कि आप इस मंच पर आएं और इस कॉन्फ्रेंस का आगाज करें।
I think he is facing some technical issue. He is about to join.
परवेज भाई,
जी भाई, बिस्मिल्लाह।
बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। जनाब डॉक्टर परवेज मसीह साहब और आए हुए तमाम मेहमानों का मैं तहे दिल से आपका इस्तकबाल करता हूं। और जिस तरीके से न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी को लेके ये ऑनलाइन प्रोग्राम मुनक्किद किया गया है, मैं आप तमाम हजरात से ये गुजारिश करना चाहूँगा, ये अपील करना चाहूँगा कि हर चीज़ की मुखालिफत करने से पहले उसको समझना चाहिए है कि उसके अंदर असल में हकीकत क्या है। हर चीज़ को अगर से हम मुखालिफ निगाह से देखना शुरू कर दें तो हमें हर चीज़ तनकीदी निगाह से ख़राब लगती है। जैसा कि मुझे डॉक्टर परवेज मसीह साहब ने बहुत तफसील से बताया कि न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी के अंदर गवर्नमेंट किस किस तरीके से फराहम कर रही है, जैसे कोर्सेज को, डिप्लोमा कोर्सेज को, और दूसरे और जो जैसे बच्चे स्कूल में बस्तानात के लेके जाते हैं तो एक दिन बैग फ्री होके आए, और दूसरे अपने मसाइल हैं एजुकेशन के तो उनको लेके तो एक बार सब मिल के ऑनलाइन हो या ऑफलाइन हो, सर से सर जोड़ के बैठे और बैठने के बाद में एक बार देखें इसको और देख के इसको पर अमल करें। यही मैं कहना चाहूँगा, इसलिए कि मेरे पास आज वक्त बहुत कम है। मेरी ऑल इंडिया शिया फसला बोर्ड की एग्जीक्यूटिव कमेटी की मीटिंग लगी हुई है, लिहाजा मैं डॉक्टर परवेज मसीह साहब को और उनकी पूरी टीम को मैं मुबारकबाद देना चाहता हूँ। जिस तरीके से माशाल्लाह से ये यंग हैं, एनर्जेटिक हैं और जिस तरीके से ये काम कर रहे हैं, और जो इन्होंने बेहतरीन गेस्ट इसमें जमा किए हैं जो इस मौजू के ऊपर अपने अपने ख्यालात का इजहार करेंगे, तो मैं उम्मीद है कि कोशिश करूंगा कि उनके भी लेक्चर्स को इंशाल्लाह सुनने के वास्ते और उससे मैं फैज़ हासिल करूंगा। बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया डॉक्टर परवेज मसीह साहब और आपके तमाम आए हुए गेस्ट हजरात। परवेज भाई,
जी भाई सुन रहे हैं भाई, बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। और अभी वो कंपेयर है वो टेक ओवर कर रही है।
शुक्रिया सर। Moving ahead now, I would like to call Mr. Syed Sajid Hussain Kazmi, Organizing Secretary of IMHRC, to welcome our esteemed chief guest. Over to you, Sajid sir.
Good morning, everyone. I extend my greetings to all the participants here, especially my chief guest, our senior professionals, team members, and my dear participants. Thank you very much for taking out time and reaching out to us on this platform, which we have in these 2 days, today and tomorrow, we will be deliberating on various issues pertaining to the uh, nation development. As we all are aware of that in this year 2022, India has crossed 75 years post-independence. So as I can quote my mentor, Professor Zaidi, that he says that why are these days or these events important to celebrate? So it has two aspects. One is that so far what we have achieved, and another aspect is that what is left over and what we can achieve in the upcoming years. That means agenda setting, policy making. So with this idea, we incorporated the themes. This whole conference has been divided into 5 sub-themes, which are as follows. Just I'll be taking out few minutes to introduce the whole themes and topics. I hope my PPT is visible to all of you.
It is
So the
visible.
major theme or the core theme of the conference was developing New India, and how we can plan for the development of New India. It can be definitely achieved through the concepts of science, social science, humanities, and research. Because we cannot talk about development unless and until we focus on the research aspects in academics. The whole aim of this conference, because it is a multidisciplinary conference, as the Niti Aayog has stipulated in their strategic document post this 75-year celebration, that they try to make it as a mass movement. That means development through community involvement. And by community, we all the stakeholders, including the academicians, research professionals, uh, media, journalism, and medical professionals, healthcare professionals, whatsoever. So it is a multidisciplinary conference and approach. That is why we have tried to incorporate and bring along dignitaries and academicians from varied disciplinary areas. Talking about this conference, so yesterday we had a pre-conference workshops, 2 conference workshops. One was on the regulation of self, that is self-regulation through the music. The resource person was Dr. Durgesh K. Upadhyay from the Department of Psychology, Mahatma Gandhi, Kashi Vidyapeeth, Varanasi. The workshop was well attended by more than 50 participants throughout various departments and universities. The second very important workshop was about the SPSS, because whenever we talk about research, we cannot ignore the contribution of IBM in the form of SPSS, Statistical Package for Social Sciences. Because we, the medical sciences as well as the healthcare, we all rely on the softwares now for statistical analysis and all these things. So for this, the development and the understanding of softwares, the statistical packages is very much relevant. So we invited Dr. Ridhima Shukla from Christ University NCR, and this workshop was again well attended by more than 50 participants throughout India. Coming to the number of participations, so we have received more than 400, around 415 or 420 plus registrations, including 261 or 262 paper presenters, which we will try to incorporate in these 2 days, starting from today. There will be plenary sessions in which we have invited 14 eminent speakers from international arena as well as the national domains. Then there will be 12 scientific sessions starting from today itself, in which 24 eminent scientists and research professionals will be invited to chair the sessions and give their briefings and feedbacks to the budding researchers. The 5 themes which we have distributed, the major theme are: first is clinical psychology and mental health care. Second is mental health and psychosocial perspectives. Third sub-theme is biomedical sciences, healthcare and research. Fourth is very important again, which we all have just passed the phase, that is the COVID-19 and psychosocial challenges. And the last is the general theme, that is the developing new India in a very holistic manner. This theme incorporates papers from varied disciplines, including law, social sciences, education sector, then community mental health, community development, literature, and all these pertaining areas. Here is a glimpse of the speakers, which through these 2 days we will be going through. Then we have also incorporated awards. Various awards are there to promote the upcoming and to acknowledge the work done by the upcoming researchers. So first in the category is Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Award for Excellence in Research. All these awards will be in the form of cash prize and certificate of appreciation. Second is Dr. Kalbe Sadiq Award for Outstanding Research. Third will be Professor Mohidi Hassan Memorial Award for Best Research Presentation. Fourth award lineup, Dr. Aga Hadi Masih Award for Best Research Presentation. And the last award will be Nadeem Azam Memorial Award for Emerging Researcher. So these are the glimpses of the award categories which we will be having. And talking about the finalization of the award. So it is based on the 2 criteria. First is the submission of detailed full paper. So we will be checking the authenticity, originality of the idea, and the core theme, the conceptual framework, the research methodology, and the utility of that particular research work, followed by the presentations made by the researchers in these conferences. So with this, I conclude my presentation, and I take the honor of inviting my chief guest of this event, Professor Abbas Ali Mehdi, sir. A brief introduction of sir. Professor Abbas Ali Mehdi, sir. He has been involved in research and teaching for last 35 years. And he has been active contributor in the field of research in the medical sciences with more than 400 publications and astonishing 20,000 citations. He has, to his credit, more than 32 book chapters and 10 books, including PhD guidance and PhD supervision of more than 26 scholars, followed by 4 MPhil scholars and 200 MD, MS, MDS, and DMS students. He has supervised more than 50 research projects, including the prestigious DST, FIST, and the World Academy of Science, Italy projects. Professor Abbas Ali Mehdi has received several awards and recognitions for academic and research contributions, including the Fellowship of National Academy of Medical Sciences, India, and Indian Academy of Biomedical Sciences. He has delivered over 200 invited talks at various international and national institutions, conferences. Sir has been the editor-in-chief for many international and national journals and has been associated with numerous journals in the form of reviewers. He has been examiner and expert for numerous national and foreign institutions, including those in Egypt, Israel, Saudi Arabia, Malaysia, Palestine, Iran, and China. Professor Abbas Ali Mehdi has been the president of 4 national scientific societies, namely the Association of Clinical Biochemists of India, Indian Academy of Biomedical Sciences, founder president, Indian Society of Critical Care Toxicology from the year 2018. He has also been the founder president, Indian Society for Lead Awareness and Research, and the vice president of Association of Clinical Biochemists of India. He has also been associated with the Society of Free Radical Research, Indian Society of Chronomedicine. And another important point which I would like to highlight is that Sir has been included in the list, the very recently published list by the Cambridge University, along with the elsewhere, that he is among the top 2% of the researchers in the field of medical sciences and global list, you can say. So it is a big achievement for all of us that Sir is here, and he has tried to spare some time because he has administrative experiences, administrative duties as well. He is the controller of examination, King George Medical University, as well as the chief proctor of KGMU. With this brief introduction of you, sir, I hand over the dais to you.
Thank you, Dr. Sajid, for your nice introduction. I am not allowed to share my screen, so kindly allow me to share my screen so that I can show the PPT. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Very much, sir.
Okay, so this I have been disabled for sharing the screen. Can the organizers allow me to share the screen?
Yes, sir, just a minute.
Okay. A very good morning to all of you. It's a pleasure today to be part of this conference and to be here and to be interacting with you all. Of course, this due to COVID on this online platform. And I must thank the organizers for inviting me today and giving me an opportunity to interact and share my views. Now, as far as Dr. Sajid has mentioned that so many changes are taking place globally, and India is coming up as a world leader in multiple areas, and not only in healthcare sector, but other areas also. So today I'll be basically talking about the advancement in medical science and emergence of India as global leader in healthcare. So before going into it, let's start with the prehistoric medicine, from where we started. That early humans were unaware of the various diseases, and initially it was in the prehistoric times, it was believed that illness and disease is basically were the punishment of gods. And initially the physicians were basically using that simple trial and error method to discover the medicinal benefits from the plants and herbs. So that was initially being used. So plants and herbs have been used for time immemorial for treating various diseases. And the struggle or the basic start of medicine, in that too, India has a great role to play. It's said that more than 5000 BC, India developed a comprehensive form of healing called Ayurveda. And this developed, and we have got medical treatments propagated by Charaka, and who was a physician, and Shushruta, who was a surgeon of ancient India. So from time immemorial, India and Indian physicians and Indian surgeons have played a pivotal role in treating various illnesses through which the humans were suffering. And they used to use all 5 senses in the diagnosis of the diseases, and to identify the disease, to treat the disease, and to use, basically it was basically the use of the medicinal plants which was there. Now, world over also, the basic advancements in the field of medicine started between 16th to 18th century. And during this period, for example, the German scientist in 18th century developed the common the painkiller, that is morphine. And from that, it started that the period, the period of mid 18th century and early 19th century was a period when medicine was heavily professionalized. And here, with the advancement, new career options, even for the women, came in the form of nurses. So that's how the advancement in modern medicine started. And with the coming of the 19th century, various branches came out, like for example, physiology was an independent branch. And similarly, in 1980s itself, the germ theory was discovered. And then the Louis Pasteur in Paris, he was a French chemist who established the science of bacteriology, and he even discovered the rabies vaccine. Similarly, Robert Koch showed that bacteria could be cultivated, isolated, and examined, and he discovered this tuberculosis, and also the virus for this Vibrio cholerae for cholera. Similarly, this continued, and the most spectacular overarching medicine advance of the 19th century was the use of antiseptics. And like, for example, carbolic acid, that phenol is used as an antiseptic. So that all developed in 18th century and 19th century. Now, similarly, basically the changes which started in 18th century and continued in 19th century, they further developed into the discovery of the sanitization, because people thought that sanitization is important. And the first modern epidemiological study in UK by John Snow identified that cholera was transmitted by the ingestion of water contaminated by feces. So this was another thing that people started thinking about, that sanitization is sanitation is important for the prevention of diseases. And similarly, another spectacular advancements in the end of the 19th century was the discovery of X-rays. And that's how the diagnosis become very easy. And not many changes started thereafter. Like, for example, in India itself, a British medical officer who was in the Indian Medical Service, Ronald Ross in Calcutta, he demonstrated that malaria parasites are transmitted by mosquitoes. So that was a very big, remarkable discovery, that the malaria, which was very common at that time, is basically because of the mosquitoes, transmission by the mosquitoes. And this remarkable increase in scientific knowledge during the 19th century radically transformed and expanded the practice of medicine world over. And India also contributed a lot. Like, for example, even for the discovery of the malaria parasite, the work was done in the Tropical Institute at Calcutta. Similarly, with the start of the 20th century, there was a plethora of discoveries and advancements in medicine all away. Everywhere you can see that there were not many publications, conferences, use of computers, electronic media, everything that came into being in the 20th century. And that led to the easy transmission of the information from one part of the world, and publications were available. The scientific publications were available in the libraries and all that. And thereafter, when photocopiers came, papers could be exchanged. Similarly, with the advent of computers, things become more easy. And similarly, in 1928, like, for example, Alexander Fleming, he accidentally discovered the antibiotics and all that. So that's how the things started developing. And with the discovery of, for example, by Basting and Best in 1922 about the insulin, that's the hormone which is important for diabetes. So similarly, antibiotics were, streptomycin was discovered in 1943, and penicillin was discovered in 1940s. So these were the changes which were taking place simultaneously world over in the field of medicine. And simultaneously, there were changes also in the diagnostics and surgical techniques to cure fatal diseases. Like, for example, in 1954, the first successful transplant of the kidney took place. That was the first renal transplant which took place. Similarly, in 1982, the first artificial heart was transplanted. So these were the things which were taking place world over. And most important, I think, the thing which has totally transformed, and simultaneously with the developments in the medicine and physiology, there were developments in biochemistry also, the branch to which I belong. In biochemistry, the changes start, although this subject was given the name quite late in the day, at the start of the 20th century. But the discoveries led to the culminated into the breaking of the genetic code, which is also called as God's code. And this discovery of the genetic code by Watson and Crick in 1953 really transformed the treatment modalities, the diagnostics, and everything has been transformed. Like, for example, I give an example that earlier insulin, which is used for the treatment of diabetes, was not available. Human insulin was not available. So we used to use either horse insulin or pig insulin. for treating diabetes when insulin was needed. But as you know that they are from other species. It is either from horse or pig. And with pig, there were religious issues also with Jews and Muslims. So not many problems were there. Now, with the invent of the genetic engineering on the basis of the discovery of genetic code by Watson and Crick, total transformation has taken place. And now in the market, human insulin is available. So you can synthesize human insulin in a test tube and use it for the humans. So that is what the change, total transformation has taken place. The proteins which are important for the body, like for example, for the treatment of viral diseases, for the treatment of lot many diseases, interferons were used. Now, these interferons are the minor proteins which are present in our blood. Now, I remember that in 1980s, there was a report in Scientific American that the American Red Cross spent billions of dollars to isolate sufficient amount of interferon from the human blood. And that was basically, there was ethical issue also, because the blood was taken from the prisoners of war, Vietnamese war. And from them, sufficient interferon could be isolated to treat 6 patients. So it is said that about $5 billion were spent by US Red Cross to treat 6 patients for the viral diseases. Now with the invent of this genetic engineering, now the treatment, this interferon is normally available in the market, and it costs less than $1 for a dose. So you can see, imagine that billions of dollars were spent to treat 6 patients. Now that interferon is available in the market, in the common market, for less than $1. So that's what is the changes, the transformations, whether in the synthesis of human insulin is concerned, or this interferons is concerned, which has taken place because of the work which was carried out by Watson and Crick way back in 1953, about 70 years back. Now, with the coming up of the Human Genome Project in 2003, completion of the Human Genome Project, things are changing at a faster pace. In the last 20 years or so, so many transformations have taken place, so many changes have taken place, like, for example, development of lot many vaccines for the treatment of cervical cancer, herpes, and similarly, human embryo, total embryo has been cloned, although it couldn't survive, but still advanced cell technology is being used for the cloning purposes now. And you will not be surprised that shortly people are already trying to grow human organs in a petri dish. So you will find that instead of having a donors available, you can grow your own cells in a petri dish, and you can grow your own organs, whether it is a kidney, or whether it is a heart, or whether it is a liver. Your own heart can be grown in a petri dish, and that can be used for transplantation. So these changes are taking place, and we are still looking for the cures for cancer and heart diseases, although lot many transformations have taken place, lot many new drugs, new interventions have come into being, and we have almost conquered the heart disease. AIDS treatment is available, but cancer is a potential challenge which humans are still facing, and we need lot many new inputs, lot many new drugs, lot many new interventions for the early detection and treatment of cancer. Now, as far as the augmentation of medicine is concerned, this digitalization and the artificial intelligence has going to totally transform the medicine in times to come. Now, the use of computers have already, for example, in radiology, the MRI, the PET scan, the CT scan, total transformation has taken place by the use of artificial intelligence, and people have started wondering that what will be the role of man behind the machine, and whether it will be needed or not. But I'll say that the human brain, the human intelligence will always be having an upper hand as far as the machines are concerned, but we'll be using, we'll be exploiting, we'll be employing these artificial intelligence in a big way in times to come. for the diagnosis and treatment of diseases. And the computers are in a big way. Robotic surgery is the name of the day, and it is a precise thing because if you are using your hands, there is a problem. Some problems become, but with the machine, that problems can be overcome. So artificial intelligence is going to be used in both the diagnostics as well as in the treatment of the diseases in a big way in times to come. And as far as the role of India is concerned, I think India has been in the forefront of the progress in the field of medicine. And in last few decades, many changes have taken place, and that's why medical tourism has increased. And moreover, the research, as far as research is concerned, many new drugs, many new developments are taking place, whether the treatment of tuberculosis is concerned or treatment of cancer is concerned, the multi-drug resistant tuberculosis. The CSIR has developed a drug for that. Similarly, for example, in Lucknow itself, the CDRI has developed Centroman long back, and many new drugs are new molecules are going to come in the market shortly for the treatment of Parkinsonism and other diseases. So many changes are taking place, and one of the biggest challenge which the humanity has faced in this century was of COVID-19. And in that, India has come up in a big way in the field of medicine, whether in the initial stages, I was associated with the diagnostics of COVID. And we used to import all the diagnostic kits from US, and each test rather used to cost about more than 2,000 rupees. Now with India acted very fastly, our scientists, our technologists acted very fastly. And not only it was that the from people from the medical stream, but also from IITs and science institutes, they all came together. And for example, now we develop the kits, and now the per test cost has come down to less than 100 rupees. It's less than 50 rupees rather. So that's how in a month's time, in a week's time, in a day's time, the total transformation has taken place, because India has, whether it was the development of the PPE kits was there, whether the development of even the mask was there, India started production of them. Newer things came into being. Simplified things came into being, things which were cheaper and available. And now India has started exporting all these things to the outside world. So that is what is the contribution. And the biggest one, of course, was the development of the vaccine at a very fast pace. And that is how the technology has helped us. That earlier it was said that to develop a drug, at least we need 30 years to test it, to let it pass through various phases, phase 1 trial, phase 2 trial, phase 3 trial, all that used to take time, animal trials and all that. But now drugs are being developed at a very fast pace. Similarly, for vaccines, we have to wait for years to develop a vaccine. But here you see that the world has changed, and India has contributed a lot in the development of vaccine. And in the times to come, with the use of artificial intelligence, the future of surgery, for example, is going to change totally with the development of the robotic surgery. The surgical robots have got going to have a big role in times to come. Now, for example, prostate surgery and all that, the renal surgery, all that, they are being performed by the robots, and robots are available, I think, in the big institutions. And shortly, the cost is going to come down, and they will be available everywhere in India. Now, the other thing is, which I wanted to share, is that new things are coming up, like, for example, nucleic acid medicine. People are thinking to utilize DNA and RNA, that's the genetic material, to target them at the stage where protein is synthesized from the genome, that is DNA and RNA, and to target that protein at that level. So this is going to come in a big way in next 10-20 years, that nucleic acid, so-called nucleic acid medicine. This term is not much used these days. Similarly, one more thing which is developing at a very fast pace is personalized medicine. We'll be knowing that which drug will be suiting to which person. For example, the common drug paracetamol. It's for use for pain. It's a painkiller, but some people couldn't tolerate it. They are allergic to it. So we are going to develop devices and kits on the basis of the personalized medicine, in which we can not only know which drug is going to be more effective, what's the dose of the drug which will be effective, how much dose is to be given, all that will be developed in this so-called personalized medicine or precision medicine, as it is called as. Similarly, nanomedicine is going to be a big thing. Nanocapsules are being developed for the delivery of the drugs at the sites where they are needed. For example, there is a cancer at the head of the pancreas. You can develop a nanoparticle which will go and attach to the pancreas and release the drug there and kill the cancer cells. Similarly, stem cells have got a tremendous potential in understanding and treating a range of diseases, and many work is going on in our country itself. I know people who are working in the stem cell research, where they are using stem cells for the treatment of many degenerative diseases, including the spinal cord injury. And at King George Medical University itself, I have seen that people, the transfusion medicine people and the person from the neurosurgery and orthopedics, they are using stem cells for the treatment of the debilitating diseases because of the injuries to the spinal cord. So these devices, whether it is nanotechnology, stem cell research, and the personalized medicine and the nucleic acid medicine, is going to transform the future of medicine in, I think, in front of our eyes only in coming few decades. And we are going to have many transformations which are going to take place in the field of medicine, and many new exciting developments to take place in the field of medicine, for which we must be ready. And I think the government of India is emphasizing, that's why, on translational research, and many emphasis these days is on how any molecule or any substance can be used for the treatment of disease, for example, or for example, any new diagnostics test could be developed for quick diagnosis, cheap diagnosis, early diagnosis of the diseases. So I think this point of care systems and the new developments in diagnostics, like for example, even in biochemistry earlier used to use solutions for example, the detection of blood glucose level, for the estimation of blood glucose level. Now slides are available, simple paper slides are available, on which you put a drop of blood or serum or plasma, and immediately, instantaneously, you will know the blood glucose level. So these devices have been developed for the estimation of many molecules, and these transformations are taking place. Similarly, the computer-based, or for example, the app-based applications are available for the diagnostics, and in a big way for the prediction of the diseases. These apps are going to be used and they are going to come in the market shortly. And on your mobile, you can today itself you can estimate your pulse, you can have your blood pressure, you can have your respiratory rate and all that. Similarly, in times to come, even your blood sugar level or your other biochemical parameters will be known on your mobile itself, and non-invasive devices will be developed, which you need not to have, for example, from just blood glucose level estimation, just scanning the skin by your mobile phone. You can, by using the mobile camera, you can detect the blood glucose level, and that is going to come up in a big way. Earlier, we used to think that instead of having repeated pricks in case of detecting the blood sugar level, we may use saliva, human saliva, so that it is a non-invasive technique. Now people are developing apps. They are developing mobile-based apps by which you can detect the blood sugar level. So these transformations are taking place, and India is contributing in a big way by the use of artificial intelligence. I know people who are working for making programs for prediction of diseases like for detection of diseases like epilepsy at an early age, for the detection of parasitic infections, all that, and that's going to be a big thing to come in times to come. So I think with this, I'd like to thank the organizers, and especially Dr. Sajid and others, his team members, for giving me the opportunity to talk to you and to talk about the advancements and the future of future trends of medicine globally as well as in India. And with this, I'd like to thank Dr. Sajid once again. And if there are any questions or anything, I'll be happy to answer. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Very much. Very, very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for giving us a brief insight into advancements in the medical science. If there are any questions, they can be raised in the chat box.
There is no question as such, but my personal gratitude towards Professor Mahdi. In spite of having very, very serious and very busy schedule, he honored us by
No.
his
It was a pleasure and really an honor for me to be here this morning and to talk to you. Yeah, although today I am busy because just after a few minutes, 11:15, I have to attend a International Lead Awareness Week. This is there. So from 22nd of October to 29th of October, the World Health Organization is hosting this lead awareness week for prevention and awareness about lead toxicity. So we have got a big program here at ERA this morning. So I just squeezed out the time, and because Dr. Sajid asked me and I couldn't say no to him. So, and it's always a pleasure and really an honor to interact with you all, and especially Dr. Zaidi, who has been so supportive and so helpful to me. And he's a great friend of mine.
Honor to me, sir. Honor to me.
It's a
Sir,
pleasure.
only one small request that if you could share some information regarding the psychiatric medicine, because most of our participants are young students and they are in the field of mental health. And
Okay.
India has done a lot in the psychiatric medicines, particularly from the Rolfia invention of Rolfia and the treatment of schizophrenia or other psychotic disease. Antipsychotic disease medicines were initially initiated by Indian Ayurvedas only. If you could spare a few minutes and
Absolutely.
enlighten them on this issue, sir. Thank you.
Absolutely. I think the contribution of India and the potential of clinical psychologists, and psychiatrists is going to be in a big way. And the contributions, although are there, but I think the potential of these the developments which are going to take place in the field of psychiatry, in the field of psychology, in the field of clinical psychology especially, because psychosomatic diseases are increasing at a very fast pace, and there is a need for counseling. There is a need for new developments to take place in this area, and I think I see a big potential and big field for this science. And because even in, for example, you have seen in the COVID, it is a disease which was basically affecting the lungs, but it was not that lungs were only affected, but it was also affecting the psychology of the people, not only the patient, but the people around. So you need to have a good clinical psychologist and this psychiatrist for the treatment of psychological illnesses. And I think the developments which have taken place and the way the clinical psychologist and the psychiatrist have imparted counseling and all that, I've seen myself that how it helped the patient. And still, I think in every branch of medicine, we need counseling, we need counselors, we need people who can counsel, who can prepare the people to face the challenges of a disease. So I think there's a big scope for people to come and contribute in this area, and they have got going to have a big potential for them in times to come.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Anushka, over to you. There are a few chat questions and something on the chat box.
Sir, thank you.
So you can quickly request Adi Hassan to speak.
That have come up in the chat box. Yes, sir. So, Mr. Abhay Srivastava, if you could share some light, throw some light on the cost of availing medicine in the future. How can we make medical facilities more cost effective?
I think that's what I have mentioned in my lecture itself, that for example, for the treatment of viral diseases, including cancer and autoimmune disorders, we use human proteins. So earlier they used to cost a lot. Like I gave the example of interferon that in 80s, not long back, just about 40 years back, the cost of the interferon was in millions of dollars. Now it is coming for less than $1. So with the advancements which are taking place in the diagnostics as well as in the treatment modalities, cost is going to come down, especially of the diagnostics, because cheaper and non-invasive tests, as I said, that for example, even for the detection of blood glucose level, you are going to have an app. So what will it cost? Your mobile you can use for the detection of your blood, monitoring your blood glucose level. Similarly for other parameters also. So I think in times to come, cost is going to come down. And although with the escalation of prices in every sphere of society, maybe that the treatment cost may be high, the drugs may be a bit costly, but still prices are being maintained because of the large productivity, easy productivity, and lot many transformations are taking place in the production itself. And so I think that cost effectiveness will be maintained, and new things will be coming up, new developments will be coming up in the area of therapeutics as well as diagnostics. And as I said that, for example, in personalized medicine, that's going to totally transform this precision medicine and precision medicine and personalized medicine, as it's called, as, or personalized medicine. As we started with the evidence-based medicine. Experience-based medicine was there earlier. So earlier it was said that it was experience-based. Then we came to personalized medicine. Then we came to evidence-based medicine. Now it is personalized medicine. Moreover, it is coming to be the precision medicine. So things are going to change and transformations are going to take place in times to come.
Thank you so much.
One is on ethics. Ethical issues are very important. I think that's very important. That how to, like for example, this recombinant DNA technology, for example, the production of the human organs or the use of stem cells, because they have the potential to sometimes to lead to the changes in our genome, and that may cause certain types of malignancies and cancers. So I think ethical issues are very important and vital, and we have to walk a tightrope because ethics have to be taken into consideration and unethical things have to be avoided. Like for example, I saw one picture of on a scientific magazine of a human ear grown on a mice. On the back of the mice, they grew human ear. So whole human hair was grown by the manipulation in the genes of the mice. So such things are taking place, but in that ethics are very important. Like for example, the growth of artificial growth of human embryo that was stopped, and still people are working on the growth of human organs, but not many ethical issues are there also. So I think that is very important and vital. And I think we must take into considerations the ethics in a big way. Anything else? I couldn't see. One thing is about the clinical time of clinical trials. Someone mentioned. Yeah, that's true. That time has been reduced. And it is a bit scary because earlier, much time was spent. No, actually, this is because because of the developments in cell biology, we can grow the cells, human cells, in the petri dishes, and on that we basically carry out the clinical trials. Earlier, it was in animals, like for example, from lower strata of animals to the higher strata, from mice to, for example, monkeys. We used to go. Now, most of those clinical trials are being skipped, and we are using human cells for carrying out the safety and efficacy of the drugs. So I think that has reduced the time lag. But yes, we have to have the human safety and the safety of the persons who are going to use that molecule prominent in our minds, and keep that in minds. That is very important. And I think all these things are being taken into considerations, because ethical issues, earlier we didn't have ethical committees in most of the institutions. Now all the industries and even the institutions, they have ethics committees, and they are recognized by a regulatory body like Indian Council of Medical Research, and the Drug Control of India monitors the working of the ethics committees. So it is a rigorous monitoring which is being carried out. And if any trial or anything on humans is to be done, then it has to pass through a rigorous ethical issues. So I think safety and efficacy is taken into consideration. But always, as I said, even for isolation of interferon, people use unethical means. So it's a walking on a tightrope. Someone has mentioned about the use of saliva. Yes, saliva is being used for detection of blood glucose level, although it is not very common. But I think I see a great future. I saw that device in my visit to UK 2 years back, that they have developed for two things. One is for detection of the blood glucose level, and other is for the detection of ulcers in the foot, diabetic ulcers in the foot. They have developed an app for that. So from that, I see a great future in not only detection of blood glucose, but also someone has mentioned about the creatinine for the diabetic patients. So that too can be monitored in times to come. I think, because I never imagined that without using the fluids, without using the solvents, without using the solutions, we can detect blood glucose level. Now on a slide, you can just put a minute drop of human plasma, and you can get the blood glucose level. No use of any liquid in that. Any other question? I think I don't see any other question.
I think it's enough, and we had a very, very nice interactive session, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Over to Nandini and other anchors.
Thank you so much, sir, for answering those questions. There are a few more coming in, but since we have to abide by the time, we will be noting down these questions, and you can mail any further questions you have to our website. Moving on, I would like to welcome Professor Dr. Agha Parvez Masih, who is the Organizing Secretary and Associate Professor of Zoology, Shia PG College, Lucknow. Sir, I welcome you, and I request you to kindly welcome our conference chairperson, Professor S.Z. Zedi, sir. Thank you.
Sir, Anushka, wait for a minute. Sir, Professor Mehdi, if you are available, we would be very honored to have you here. Otherwise, if you
5 minutes, I'm available. A quarter to, I think after 5 minutes, I'll leave.
So nice, so nice. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yes, over to Anushka.
Good morning, all. And it is always a privilege to welcome Professor.
Your voice is not clear. Your voice is not clear.
And we have done a lot of things from him. He is a very good academician. I'm logging from another device. Wait a minute. Good morning to all. Am I audible? Hello.
Yes, you are audible now.
Okay. First of all, I welcome all and Professor Mehdi Abbas sir, and all the dignitaries attending this seminar, and all the participants. On the behalf of Shia College, I welcome all of you. It is always a great honor and privilege to welcome Professor Zafar Zaidi sir of MIT University in the conference. He is our mentor also, and we have learned a lot of things from him. And he is a renowned academician and a well-known figure in his field. He is a professor at the MIT University, and he's also an active member of the Rehabilitation Council of India. And a lot of the students are getting academic benefits and mentorship and privilege from him. And we are very grateful grateful to him. He always spare time for us. As far as concerned about this conference is about developing new India through education and science. As we are seeing, there is a constant threat to the educational system and new challenges. And I have a firm belief that under the honorable leadership of our Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, sir, and a new education policy, India will meet this challenge and it will overcome this challenge. And it is a very good time for our youth to invest their energy and vision in the education. Because through education, we can change our society and we can take our country, our beloved country, to the among the developed nations. So once again, I welcome all the participants, all honorable speakers, resource person in the conference, and I again welcome Mr. Professor Zafar Zaidi sir to deliver his speech.
Thank you, Professor Agha Masih. Could I get my slides, Sajid sir? Can you show my slides? Am I audible to you all? Can you share my slides?
Ji sir, just a minute.
Thank you, Sajid. Well, the topic given by organizers to me to speak 20 minutes, 25 minutes is Disability Beyond Stigma, an Inclusive Approach for Modern India. I want you all to read this topic from the back side, reverse side. The focus is modern India, and you cannot think modern India unless you think of inclusive approach, particularly inclusive approach for those who are suffering from one type of disability or the other, because as per the census, we have almost 4% of disabilities of severe nature and altogether 10% of visible and non-visible disability of different types. And when we have to include these folk of 4 crores and more than that, we have to look them beyond their stigma. So this is the topic which I'm going to share with you. Many of things is not at all a new things, but I will be sharing with you different models through which you can think beyond the stigma, because it has been practiced that only saying will not help this population. Only saying will not fetch any result that yes, we will have this thing, we should not be stigmatized and this and that. How to do it? Because it is such a deep-seated stigma is a cognitive status when we think about others. So let's see a few slides to be more systematic on my presentation. Next, please. Next, please. You see that stigma, we talk about the stigma. Let's see that what is the technical definition of stigma. The mark of disgrace associated with a particular circumstances or quality. It is usually when we give less importance and we disgrace any group of person as a person for his or his circumstances or the quality. People who are stigmatized are treated differently. They are not taken as one of us. They are not treated as one of the creature of God, especially normalizing the situations or as at par to us. They are seen as different people. They are usually marginalized and often neglected. Here, marginalization is not that serious because marginalization is maybe because of various reasons. If there is a huge population of a particular group community, and the one who is a minority is statistically marginalized, so that is not a big issue. The issue becomes when they are neglected, and once you neglect them, the problem starts. Your challenge starts, because being a marginalized is not that serious issue. Being a neglected, subject to be negligence, subject to be abused or exploited, that become your main issue. And I would be focusing on this issue and always made feel ashamed. And this attitude of yours, this attitude of the masses, that this person is a different, is marginalized, and by the negligence, by the neglecting them, abusing them, exploiting them for one way or the exploitation is very, very common. That I will not give the equal wages. Is very, very common exploitation, that they are getting the wages comparatively less than, they are not getting promotions, they are not getting due share of their in the economy or in the social aspects and the promotions and wherever it is there. Then you made them to feel ashamed, and it is unjust and in a clear violation of the human rights. Persons are people stigmatized. It's not only the disabled persons. Anybody to whom you are stigmatizing, to whom you are keeping away from your mainstream, marginalizing them and neglecting them, you are doing a serious violation of human rights. And the people to whom you are doing this thing are at a very disadvantaged situations. Next. Particularly stigma and disability, these are almost going together. It is synonymous of each other. People with the disability are stigmatized as a result of false assumptions. And the very serious and interesting thing is that is a silver line also, because you are stigmatizing them based on false assumptions. You may not be knowing about his ability. You have never tried them out. You never given him any opportunity to work with you, but you have presumed that they will not do it. You did not allow them to study together. You did not admit them for a higher education because there was no facility. And you are presuming, you are justifying this double standard on the pretext that such people that disability are unable to learn will remain dependent on them. Have you given any opportunity to be independent? Have you ever given any opportunity to learn equal, same syllabus, same subject, same situations with some extra support? Perhaps your assumption is false. Your assumption is based on your preoccupations, your prejudice approach. Cultural or religious belief can strengthen the stigma. Another very painful situation in our society, in our culture, that we are trying to link disability with cultural or religious belief, that this is the result of witchcraft or the sin of previous behavior, previous sin done by something, previous even generation, that my father has done something, so I am suffering from this disease. My grandfather has done some sin, so it is his ancestors, his family, or his new generations are suffering from this type of issues. And when we talk about the sin, psychologically, we feel ourselves very helpless, that there is no alternative to this. It is the God will. So the religion and culture is also attaching a lot of putting fuel on the fire, and also reinforcing the stigmatized mindset. People with disability are sometimes said to possess particular, and this is another aspect of it, that we think that they are very supernatural and as a gifted person. I mean, we never try to see them in a real picture. Either they are independent, they are dependent on others, they cannot learn, or in some of the cases, it is presumed that they have a very special supernatural power. We presume that all the visually impaired person are a very good singer. Maybe, may not be. So we never try to give them the right of them. That presuming that उन्हें तो कुदरत ने गाने की क्षमता दी है, we never give them a trial, we never give them other alternatives, other professional support, other opportunity to pick up some other skill, because we have presumed that the blind person would always be either in the music or gana gayega or dhol bajayega, and he would be earning things and he would be perfectly all right, because it is a gift given to the God. So this, both the things, either on the extreme negative or extreme positive, which is based on false assumptions, are increasing the stigma and strengthening the stigma in the society. These two are stigma, false beliefs. Next, please. Sir, next. Stigma disability can be extended to entire family. It is not only the person involved, it is extended to entire family, and it is considered as a children, disabled children are the punishment, believed to be the punishment for a family members having a sin, or I've already discussed with you. The stigma of having child with disability means that children with disability are often not reported. A result, they are not being included in official statistics. Now in the census 2011 and even 2001, situation was slightly different, because the disability component has become the part of national census. जनसंख्या की जब गणना होती है, prior to that there was no such column, there was no such distribution. They were not considered to be the important component for which they are recovered, they are recorded. Somehow or the other, there were only very ill-conceived columns which never reflected the real picture, and that itself was a very stigmatized and limiting factors. Mothers can put under pressure to abandon or to do away from the disabled children. I mean, this problem was not only for the census, but also the pressure on the child, because this early stage, early identification, early recognition was there, and the mother were compelled not to take care of this child and to concentrate more on the healthy child. So this became a still more worse situation. Next. As a result of being stigmatized with the entire family or community, both people with disability can feel isolated and worthless. And this condition has resulted into the people with disability can feel isolated and worthless, that themselves, their own self-image, self-concept was impaired, was distorted to the great extent that one society, and that is very, very common thing, very obvious thing, that if I'm not appreciated by society, if my ability is not be recognized by the society, by the people around us, so what I will do it, I will feel myself absolutely isolated and worthless. And that became further barrier for their development and inclusion. They can even take on society false assumptions and belief and destigmatize themselves. And they themselves started feeling. Many disabled person, if you say that why you have done this thing, because of my sin of my parents and all this, they never thought to rebuild their structure, their social property. We call it as social property, social recognition, only because they were so much drowned into this stigma and this community rejections and community isolation. Stigma they can experience is often reinforced by negative everyday language and the language and attitude which they have been. Everyone is called, unfortunately, I am using some indecent words, the Langla. You must have heard that people are known by the name of Langla in the society, in the Mohalla. If you go and ask this person the name, many people may not give the correct answer. But if you ask that jahan pe ek Langla rehta hai, they will definitely say, अच्छा वो वहाँ के ऊपर गली के अंदर पीछे मोड़ पर देखिए बैठा होगा. And he is known for his name is no more his name as Zafar or Zaidi or any XYZ. He is now addressed by the name of by the disability. So with this status, why I am saying this thing, because you have to rebuild the modern India. You have to associate, you have to include these population to whom we have reached, to whom we have taken to this level of attitudinal barriers and this stigma, that the person themselves is started realizing that I'm useless, I'm worthless, and how big work we have to do to make our modern India and to link, to associate our 4 crores, 10% of population almost of the different visible and non-visible disability. So it is not that easy job, but it has to be done if we can prepare ourselves for the modern India, construct modern India. Next. This slide I've already discussed, that there is a 10% population throughout the world. It's not only different, negative. Now this thing. Next slide, negative. And one of the biggest negative ramification of stigma is that even if you ask for interventions, if you ask for inclusion, if you ask for coming forward, a sizable number of disabled persons will not show any interest, because they are fully aware that sooner or later they would be again treated differently and they would not be getting their due cause. So wherever they have been adjusted, they have institutionalized themselves, they have started living in a very different way of life. They would like to continue unless you really demonstrate your concern about their inclusion, they are concerned about their development and marginalized conditions, reduction in marginalized conditions. And that is why this livelihood, the opportunity, the health and other public service, our participation in other things and decision making are to be done by thinking about their requirements, and not only just on the thinking level, but doing as well, so that the negative impact of the stigma is reduced, the perception of the disabled person is improved by themselves. Next. And if we will not do this thing, perhaps we cannot achieve the real target, because they are otherwise a very, very strong potential workforce. I don't know how many of you have seen their inner potentials, and if the opportunity is given, if the proper tools and equipments are given, how effectively they can be engaged. Because we never thought of it, and we never created an opportunity, we never created an environment where they can come out, and we are simply neglecting an otherwise potentially workforce. Next. Another important negative impact of the experience of stigma and the resulting feeling of worthlessness, lack of well-being, also increase people with disability vulnerability to the psychological and physical abuse, including domestic and sexual abuse and exploitation, and deviations from the normal path. If we would not be taking care of it, we would be perhaps multiplying the problem, because they would be vulnerable, they would be high risk of a lot of psychological consequences, health issues, physical abuse, domestic abuse, sexual abuse, and otherwise exploitation. So we cannot have any other options, just cannot, but to develop some strategies, some planning to include them genuinely, positively, so that we can develop our modern India. And they are dragged towards only a consumers and not as a contributor or producers. As on date, by and large, we are considering them as only as the consumer of economy, or the consumer of the facility, or consumer of the resources. But we have to transform them from consumer to the contributor status. Next. Now the question is that how to deal these things. I mean, one can speak us together and different things, but I am sharing you some of the models which has been tried out not only in India but any other developing country, of which one is next. Skip two slides. Two slides. Next. Yes. The one is इससे पहले वाली slide. इससे पहले वाली slide, sir. Alliance. The one. Sir, वो रहने दीजिए उसके ऊपर. उस पर रहने दीजिए slides को. Alliance वाली slide I want to have. Yes. This is one of the popular model that is making the group of persons with disability and the self-help group. For particularly, they have tried out among lepers, among the blind, paraplegia, and other conditions. And they develop themselves. They first include themselves, and they demonstrated in the different situations that they have potentials to be associated. Though it was initially difficult, but subsequently the self-help group started working, and we can think of in a smaller way in our own community. Group members helped individual overcome self-stigma as community interactions with group members who faced the stigma force interactions with those facing the most people, so that the various stigma were slowly chipped away. And it will not be vanished, this stigma would not be vanished overnight. It's another warning which I would like to share with you. But you have to be continuously in efforts. It will go slightly slowly after interacting with these self groups and by interactions with the common people. Next. Most essential model component is the component of the education and the training. When I talk about the training, I talk about the training which is exclusively not for any particular group, but which is available for both the so-called person with disability and the normal population. And that is why we have initiated inclusive education model, which still require a lot of introspection, because only providing the one classroom and arranging students sitting in this together is not the inclusion. Inclusion can be ensured that the syllabus is developed in such a way that both folk, the one who has physically and mentally well equipped and the one who needs a special support, are going through the same syllabus, same equipment, same labs, same experiments, and same opportunity. And this has been tried out. The World Vision India saw a clear link between the training awareness rising, its organized or its staff, and changes in the motivation and the pursuit of disability inclusion in their workplace. And the ability and the issues, the requirement and the solutions of their training should also be the part of the education curriculum, which we have already started, but by the name of a special education, which is not a compulsory component for other students as well, unless you yourself are very keen and interested to learn about special education. You will not take up this subject, but I would suggest that it should be as one of the compulsory paper, so that it's not to make everybody a special educator, but definitely to improve the change of their attitude and to minimize their stigma, that they can be taught, they can be trained through these special procedures, these special models. And this training should also be given to the management and to the training of the staff who are employing, the managers who are employing the person. My personal experience suggests that many of them are quite willing to recruit, but they do not know how to take the work from them. And that is why they feel better that not to include, because recruiting is fine, but taking work is another project for them, because they themselves are not aware that how to get them worked. So this is another issue that we have to train our managers. We have to train as a part of many department is pre-recruitment training and the pre-inductions training, where there is no component of a special education or special training for person with disability. I think if it is included, perhaps the concept of modern India, making modern India, can be addressed well through this model. Next. We have included vocational training as a component of our curriculum. But is that vocational training employable skill training? Can by doing that thing, our students are vocationally trained, our special students with special need are employable? You see that in China, their population is much, much more than us, but it is not a liability for them, because everyone are compulsorily given some employable vocational training, skill training. They are a skilled population. They are a skilled population that the liability for us is the assets for them, only because our people are unskilled and their people are skilled. So is the case with person with disability. How many times our ITIs, our diploma level courses have modified or have developed the syllabus or the training modules suiting to the need of person with disability, or retraining our already trained disabled persons. So this employable skill training is very important, and that would definitely improve, because today the person is stigmatized because he is not in position to operate a very modern machine. So he cannot, and this message is generalized that the person with disability cannot operate modern machines. Did you ever thought of retraining, refresh training? We passed through faculty development program, management development program, how many development program, how many updating programs we have organized for these persons, for these employees of persons with disability. So these things are very important, and this is one of the very important model that if we would be extending this thing, I think our attitude would definitely change, stigma will reduce, and we will be having a 4 lakhs trainable, employable person, and it will improve our economy. Wider awareness next. We talk about disability in different ways, but how many of us has worked with disability, worked with a person with disability? How many of us has volunteered ourselves that yes, I would be visiting these centers and will, or we have organized. I mean, you would come only when I will organize you a program. The one who is working, the NGOs who are working in the disability sector are the individual initiatives that have we taken us. Now, of course, media has WhatsApp groups and small clippings have shown them working in different conditions, very awkward conditions, but they are exceptional cases. We have to utilize our community-based rehabilitation program projects in giving the wider awareness of their ability, because we are mainly stigmatized about their ability, their learning attitude, their learning capacity. And so we should, by issuing various manual, even if somebody is willing to do, he has no guidelines. So we have to develop small manuals. I would request all the NGOs and the students sitting over here that they can develop small guidelines, small manuals, documentary films, that not that this person is working, that everybody knows that many person are working on this, but how you have trained them, the graded learning system, how you have, what type of special tools you have provided, you can develop, which is low cost special tools. There is a web software, very common software, JAW software, when the blind person can do the computer, but that is still costing more than 60,000 rupees. Still, how many person can afford? So some cheap cost softwares, the machine is talking, machine is coming when the person is particularly the paraplegic person who cannot speak properly, the Parkinson persons who is not in position to talk, and there is a software available that he is not talking, not replying, he is listening, he knows the answer, but he cannot express himself. So that software he would simply put just like a WhatsApp message, and the message would speak on your behalf. So he can interact, he can take the discussion, he can give his ideas and guidelines and all this thing. He could be equally potential manager, he could be equally potential member of the community discussions. So wider awareness and modernization of their techniques. Next. So the conclusion is that stigma is at the root of much of the discrimination and exclusion. That is too often their everyday experiences. Unless stigma is adequately considered and addressed, when developmental policies, program, and other initiatives are designed, then they are likely to fail people with disability, who will remain marginalized and subject to the negative personal, social, and economic impact that follow. But once we are committed to our development for the future of modern India, we have to follow the last slide, the international obligations which we have signed, and that is next slide, please. International obligation is a social model of disability. Understand that disability is caused by the barrier to the opportunities and participation erected by society rather than by the person's physical or mental impairment or difference itself. The biggest message is that it's not only the physical barrier, it is the psychosocial barriers which is causing and which we have to minimize, which we have to reduce. It recognizes that the people with disability can live as equal members of society once these barriers to inclusion are removed. It is more a mental barrier, I would say. It is more a psychosocial barriers. Everybody is willing to extend the facilities, but once the issue of implementing of the program and the policy, there are a lot of reservations, there are a lot of limitations, because our attitude is still not very in favor of inclusion, to be very, very practical and honest and candid. However, we Indian has also signed the United Nations Declaration for the Right of Person with Disability, and we cannot afford to ignore anymore. So in our concept of, in our efforts to make our country more modern for the future, we have to look into the disability beyond stigma. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Professor Zaidi. You are not only the first speaker in the today's conference, but also my boss, my mentor, my guru. And it is always a pleasure to listen to you speak on any platform. How clearly and how extensively you have highlighted the importance of destigmatizing disability in India. So thank you so much, sir. We are in an era where the cancel culture is popular. And so if we move towards the cancellation of stigma, that will add to the benefits of the individuals with disability. And you have also thrown great light on how the role of community is important in this enabling stigma. So thank you so much, sir. With this, we also have some questions to be addressed. So if you allow me, I read the questions, sir.
Sure.
So Abhay Srivastav asks, accessibility of quality and affordable rehabilitation services for persons with disability is still a challenge. Thus, reinforcing the stigma, what could be a few steps towards improving accessibility issues of services?
Abhay, I have focused slightly that the community-based rehabilitation projects are to be strengthening, and that is the easiest approach towards rehabilitation services available in different area, different sectors. A lot of NGOs are working and they are reachable. Of course, national level institutes, regional level institutes are comparatively very, very less, but they are not meant for catering to the need of 100% people. They are satellite centers, they are model centers. And this is you and I and other persons working in the field, freelancers who can have their own organizations. So it is not the approachability of the institutes. Yes, the number of institutes, such institutes are comparatively less, but how quality of services which we are giving, that requires a real serious monitoring. And with what intention the program has been launched. This otherwise, CBR is an internationally recognized program, and that is easily available, and you can also think of it and you can improve further. And the persons, young professionals like you, can do a real good job into this. But no more only saying that because of this we cannot do this thing, because of that we cannot do this thing. Na Noman Tel hoga na Radha nachegi. That logics, that rationalization, that I'm waiting for Noman Tel so that I can show my dance. So no, you have to start doing something very positive towards minimizing this stigma. Next.
Thank you so much, sir. As of now, we had only one question, and the the question has been very appropriately answered. So thank you so much, sir. Abhay wanted to unmute and talk. So if you allow,
Yes, yeah. Abhay, you are always welcome.
share your views.
Yeah, good morning, sir. Thank you for the question, Nandini ma'am. Yes, so that's exactly was the question. I just wanted to add one more insight on the wider awareness part, sir. Since working in this I'm very young in this field of rehabilitation, disability rehabilitation. What I have come across is that awareness is still progressing. Awareness is still there, but a lot of sensitization is required. Like, जैसे कि one of my clients, when I was in my clinical training part. So one of my clients' fathers, his manager in the corporate office was quite aware about his child's disability, but on the contrary, he started pressurizing the person, and he started violating his child's condition for his purposes, for the official purposes. So I just wanted to add that awareness to hai hi, awareness pe to kaam karna hi hai, but I think sensitization towards the same persons with disabilities is also very important. So thank you, sir. Thank you for your words.
Thank you, Abhay. Awareness and sensitization going together. But you cannot simply share the information, and by sharing the information, you are automatically making person sensitized. But it's a very good point taken. Thank you. Nandini, I'm happy that I finished within the time given to me. I was supposed to wind up my presentation at 11:25. It is 11:24. So, thank you very much.
Punctuality you have, because you are the one person who has been here waiting and being a part of the conference since 9:30. And the punctuality you follow, we are trying to learn that also. So thank you so much, sir.
Okay, thank you. God bless you. Chalo.
With this, we move ahead with our program. I would like to invite Professor Dr. S. Raza Bakri, Principal Shia PG College, to take forward the platform and give a welcome address. I extend my warm welcome on behalf of Team IMHRC.
Thank you, madam. Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine, ma'am. Very distinguished guest for today, and dear participants. It's a matter of great honor for me to be welcoming you all to this occasion, which we started, in fact, that last year, when people were homebound and academic interactions were not possible. So we together, IMHRC and Shia College, have been collaborators in putting this kind of show. And I thank organizing secretaries, Sajid Kazmi, who happens to be my student also, and Dr. Professor Agha Parvez Masih, who is one of my colleagues, that they came up with the idea that we are going along with today. This is, this conference, the topic is very catchy. It's so wide, and it covers the vision for developing India through science, social science, humanities, and research. And as I read this title, you can see that this is the broadest thing that we can have. As you see, the development is the word that is very close to our heart. That is, in fact, we all want to undergo development in all areas, in all spheres, at our individual as well as social life. It's another thing that this word has gained some political connotations that is a forbidden zone for me. And I would not like to venture into that. But development, as we see, that progress, so the overall progress of the country. And here we are very specific about the development of India and the development of our nation. So let us be very clear about it, that we are shedding all the political connotations that come with this word. And we are simply talking about development. And as we can see, the development is a holistic process. And although science is at the helm of the progress the material progress that we see in the world today. Over the course of history, we have seen that Homo sapiens for millions of years, it has been developing its culture and society, and despite all that cultural and linguistic developments, there was not much in terms of equipments and instruments and the material progress that we see. And all credit goes to the Renaissance phase, when modernization kick-started in the Europe, and then it is spread to other corners of the world. And now we are living in living in an era which is dominated by internet and other sophistications of technological era. So we are very blessed to be living in an age where we are connected across the globe, and we can transmit our messages in real time from one corner to another corner. On health front, as I was listening to Professor Abbas Ali Mehdi, he mentioned in quite detail how we are developing our medical facilities and how we are catering to the needs of patients from of all sorts, and how the technology is going to benefit the mankind. We are going to eradicate diseases very soon. The diseases which we thought would have no cure in future. So genetic medicine and gene editing, CRISPR and all, nanotechnology, and it's such a huge mix of opportunities and possibilities for the diseased and disabled. So we are moving at a very fast pace thanks to all the technological prowess, whether it be in other spheres of technology and in medical field also. So there is great hope from science, and I feel that more than science, it's important for us to be equipped with scientific temper. That I feel that it is somewhat lacking in our part of the world, where we all at one hand we pursue science, we strive to excel in science, but on the other hand we resort to all superstitious means. So I am very big exponent of popularizing science and scientific thinking process. The people who should be motivated to believe in science, and they should not fall into superstitious things. So that is more important, I think. So this conference, the theme of this conference is very broad. Science, as somebody said, that science is blind without spirituality. So science has to be guided by ethics and morality if it can be of benefit to the world. The blind kind of science was the one that dropped bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki and resulted in great devastation on the globe. So if science is not guided by ethics and morality, it's a recipe for destruction for everyone. So it's a fantastic, it's a very fabulous idea to merge science with social sciences, humanities, and all. And Sajid has, and the other organizers, Dr. Parvez Masih, has come up with this brilliant idea to make a cocktail of science, social science, and humanities. And I'm very pleased to see this. And while I was going through the itinerary and the description of the programs that are going to be held in this conference, the lectures that are going to be delivered, I was sweetly surprised to find that it took almost 10 minutes for me to go through the titles itself. So you can see that it's going to be very comprehensive program, and it is going to cover not only mental health, psychoanalysis. It is also going to delve on very diverse topics on things which are related to our society and personal health and some very common social problems. So it is going to be very exciting, I think, with this such a huge diversity of. It's going to be a very exciting time for all the participants. So I welcome you all on behalf of our college, and I am very pleased to add that very recently we have been accredited with grade A by NAAC, and it's a huge achievement for our college. So I want to share it with you all, and I would like to have more such interactions in future. Such kinds of collaborations from us, to hold such kind of conferences, such kind of workshops and programs. So hopefully we'll be having such more such kind of interaction, not on annual basis, but we are going to increase the frequency of this. So far it has been very pleasant experience for me to have heard Professor Abbas Ali Mehdi and Zaidi sir also. This is the 4th year that we have been organizing this collaborative work conference, and hopefully we'll continue this trend in future. So right now I welcome you all, expecting a very exciting series of deliberations. And I will not be eating much into the time that has been very tight schedule so far. It's going to be very tight schedule because there are so many lectures lined up. So on my part, that's it. Have a very exciting session and hope it will be a benefit to all the participants. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your words of encouragement and kind words and showering your support to us in organizing this commitment. So I extend a heartfelt thanks to you, sir.
Thank you.
With this, we move ahead to our next part of the conference, that is the lecture sessions or the keynote sessions. To briefly talk about the sessions, today's sessions will be moderated by I myself, Ms. Nandini Sharma, and my colleague, Ms. Anushka Mishra. Each keynote speaker will be provided a time duration of 30 minutes to share their valuable views with us. The question answer session will be conducted at the end after the completion of the sessions. The speakers are requested to abide by the time duration as we have a series of programs to be followed. The participants are requested to post their questions in the chat box as the session unfolds. With this, I would now take this opportunity to invite our speaker, Dr. Daud Farooqi, Executive Director, Oxford Evidence and Interventions, who will be delivering a lecture on the topic, Evidence-Based Policy, a Futuristic Approach for Developed India. Dr. Daud Salim Farooqi is an Oxford with degree in Evidence-Based Policy. He is Executive Director of an Oxford-based research think tank named Oxford Evidence and Interventions, Ox7, in the United Kingdom. His work is focused on evidence-based approach that empowers research policy making and guidance of practices and interventions. He has made an exemplary contribution to the Indian society by transporting the methods of policy synthesis and calibration of interventional practices to the country. With this, I would want to hand over the platform to Dr. Farooqi and take ahead the program. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much indeed for having me here. At the very outset, I would like to declare with boundless humility that I have identified a weird connection with me and this organization, the organizing organization. Whenever I am invited in the conference, and when the conference date comes in, I land up in some hospital. So please ignore my shabby appearance. I am a hospital runaway. This time I clenched my teeth, I tightened my fists, and I resolved that I will do this presentation so that Mr. Kazmi, who has been very kind to me to invite here, do not get disappointed with me. Well, moving ahead, enough of apologies. I'm trying to share my screen from another. Yes, that's here. Right. I'll take a while. So as you'll see, the topic of my presentation is evidence-based policy, a futuristic approach for a developed India. I have studied evidence-based policy in Oxford, and I have always envisaged that the overarching approach of evidence-based policy that applies to different departments and different policy areas of the government should be transported to India, and this beautiful country gets a science-based development. As I have witnessed, I have worked in the government sectors of United Kingdom. I can see and I can foresee that if India follows evidence-based policy as a central thrust, it will definitely make a good change. So coming next, I would like to forward my thanks and gratitude to the presenters here, Maulana Dr. Yusuf Abbas, Professor Dr. Abbas Ali Mehdi, Professor Dr. Raza Bakri, Professor Dr. Agha Parvez Masih, Dr. SHS Zaidi, Dr. Van Puspa Melati, Dr. Sheikh Abdul Rahman, Ms. Nandini Sharma, Sayyid Sajid Hussain Kazmi, and Dr. Faisal Hassan Rizvi for having me here, and also to learned presenters across different scientific sessions. So coming straight to the topic, we are coming to the understanding of evidence-based policy. So evidence-based policy is an approach that tries to make most of the scientific evidence, the evidence what we generate in our laboratories, in our academic institutions, and as professors or researchers, we generate a lot of research. We generate a lot of research data, and we always hope that this data will see a policy phase sometimes. So this evidence-based policy becomes a link between the academia, the research community, and the government, the policy making. We understand that policymakers do not know what happens in the academic world. So the language, the way of presenting our researches is not comprehensible to them. So therefore, our researches, our evidences do not get a policy phase. But evidence-based policy approach processes those information and make it more readable and comprehensible to the policymakers. It makes more useful. So it has been said here, evidence-based policy helps people make well-informed decisions about policies, programs, and projects, that by putting the best available evidence from research at the heart of policy development and implementation. So evidence-based approach not only starts with framing a research question for any policy perspective. It is a continuous evaluation system up to the impact of implementation. So, and again, when the impact of implementation has been gauged, it is further transported to another location. So there is an unending process of making most of this facility. So I am coming to EBP mechanism, evidence-based. So I have developed kind of graph which might help you to understand it better, that who are the players. So there are three bodies I have foreseen, like there is scientific evidence, the publication of researches which are already available or being developed. Then we have professional practices and expertise, like people who are working at the ground, at the base, and they are continuously developing scientific evidence as well. But most importantly, there is political judgment as well. You need a minister to commission policy, evidence-based policy research in order to arrive on a scientifically sound judgment for implementation. So that is how the middle area becomes evidence-based policy. So why policymakers do not make most of the academic and practice outcomes? So this is the question which I had already raised in the beginning, that policymakers are unable to make most of the researches or the published literature, which has seen a lot of investment, government investment, but staying unused. So I'm trying to explain it over here. So as a tradition, policies and decision making are conveniently based on intuition, ideology, faith, conventional wisdom, or at best theory. So these are two separate words. Like academia, scientific development, scientific information and data is an entirely different area. Whereas policy decision making at the government level is an entirely different area. And evidence-based policy approach brings them together. So traditional methods are like politicians or their supporters try to make decisions on their own, like intuition or ideology, and it is less supported by science. But they cannot be blamed for this situation. Policymakers do not find academic research fit for purpose. Why? The reason is that I have gathered this data. It is slightly old data, but it might be useful for develop an understanding of the situation here. Since time has passed, so this number has definitely raised. So if you go for the biomedical science literature like PubMed, Medline, so you will see that 46 randomized controlled trials and 700 articles are published daily. As many as 3 million articles are published in 30,000 journals annually. And most of the researches are poorly done, relevant publications. We are mostly trying to, I'm also an academician, a researcher, basically. So I am also taking this responsibility that we are mostly focused at gaining the points, academic points, rather than by having a good number of research, rather than doing sound research, which might see a policy phase. So it is very hard to find high quality and dependable research. So the responsibility of academicians is that they develop data, they generate results, which are more dependable, which are having causal effect in the results, so that we know clearly and objectively that A is caused by B directly, and there is no intervening factors playing up. So the clarity of idea comes when we have robust evidence published around. So ABB, evidence-based policy, identifies robust, effective evidence, and it presents it in usable form. This is the role of evidence-based policy making. Like they dig in the data and they find out that what is most usable, what is most dependable, what is the best evidence, robust evidence, and how it could be utilized in a policy setup. So that is what basically evidence-based policy is. So there are absence of clear outcomes. This is also a caveat. Like whenever an academician publishes their academic research or the paper or the thesis, they are, if they get published in an international journal or in a credible journal, so their job is finished. But there is a slight responsibility which they miss on, although it is not an accountability, but it is very important that they are providing outcomes which are leading to policy outputs. Again, the language which we use in academia, which is our way, which is our setup, that we do not say clearly that A causes B. So therefore, if you want to remove B, remove A. This is a clear outcome reporting, and we do not do this because academia does not allow this. So our results are always supported by caveats. Everybody knows, so I don't need to go in the explanation. Again, I already said that there is reluctance of researchers to identify policy implications. So it is always suggested that we must add a paragraph on what are the policy implications, because you are the best person who can do this properly. And the findings which are communicated in ways that are not accessible or meaningful to the non-specialist. This is a limitation on which the academic does not have a control over it. The way they present their findings like that, there are tables, there are level of significance, there are statistical representation. So just assume that if you show this report to an IAS officer, like a commissioner or somebody, a secretary level person, and ask him to draw out some policy outcomes out of this academic research, they will raise their hands. So, okay, they will feel sorry that I do not understand this language. So how can I? So you need to tell them things in a clear way. And this is not your responsibility. This is not a responsibility of a researcher or an academician. So evidence-based policy approach basically does this. And there is information overload. In fact, if there is some enthusiastic administrator or policymaker who wants to dig in the researches in order to inform policies, so they find that there is too much confusing information. Again, information overload. So why EVM in governments is warranted? Now we are coming to the idea, the question that why do we need this basically? This is just an assumption, the premise that evidence-based policy might help us to have improved governance. But we need to clearly understand this. So for an outstanding policy performance, we want to follow valid methods. And valid methods, most effective methods, the context-ready methods are not always in our minds, or particularly saying in the minds of policymakers. They need to find the connections between the previous knowledge and the given situation in the field. If you see, like for example, sex crimes in a certain city rise exponentially. So we have two ways. Like one is that we are trying to develop assumptions why it has happened, and second is that we are trying to find it objectively through scientific methods. So of course, our policy decisions will be more effective if we scientifically know that why something is happening, why the psychology is changing, why the behavior is getting more violent. So that is how evidence-based policy functions. The methods that have been tested to see that they will do what they say they are going to do. Like if some certain method is claiming, if it is valid, and if it is claiming that if A will be changed, B will also be changed. So like in psychology, there is a very common relationship which is often referred that frustration leads to aggression. So this is an objective knowledge. This is a scientific knowledge. So whenever we need to have a control over aggression, we need to control frustration, in fact. This is what we know scientifically. Okay, and another thing is that evidence-based policy assures you of precise outcomes, that if you do this, this will happen. And then we want to pursue with previously proven practices in the new context. This is also known as transportation of evidence, that when we have seen success of a certain program in a certain context, we try to shift it to another location. We do adjustments at the level of economy, politics, sociology, and geography, and then a successful intervention is transported from one place to another place. Another thing is that we want to inform decision making so that a foolproof system of practice could function in the governments or organization. Like once a kind of method has been proven successful, we develop norms, we develop guidelines, and that are controlling future behaviors. So I have tried to develop a chart here, which is slightly distorted here because of the settings. So the upper box. So this is showing the mechanism. I have tried to develop this so that I can explain how evidence-based policy brings about change, like the model thing. So the yellow box represents, yellow boxes in fact represent government, and down there will be green boxes that represent evidence-based policy professionals. So in the first situation, policymakers have incentives to access and use research. Like if policymakers have been commissioned to do this, like so, and they go for accessing research and to implement it into the policy setting, and then policymakers have capacity to access if they have the capacity as well. And if they do not have, then evidence-based policy professionals come into action, and they go for relevant research is effectively communicated to policymaker. So the combined action is that policymakers access and use research to inform policy. Like with the help of evidence-based policy professionals, policymakers are having access and use of proper use of research, the scientific data from academic and scientific world. But there are caveats that policymakers have willingness to use research, and policymakers are evidentists themselves. That is also a caveat that is mostly not possible. And evidence-based policy professionals are having a level of connection between policymakers and researchers. So this is a kind of variable which might affect the quality of outcome of this work. And another thing is that quality of research communication to policymakers plays an important role. So the caveat for action is that how well evidence informed is existing policy. So if you are working on an existing already running policy, so is it already evidence informed? Is it already working on previously known scientific outcomes, or it is totally blank in terms of science? So this is what action depends on. So the outcome will be evidence-informed policy that contributes to rational development. And that is what we want to achieve. So that is how the model explains how policymakers and evidence-based policy professionals come together and help to develop scientifically sound policies. Now we come to another term which has already been used, that is robust evidence. So I would like to say that evidence means robust evidence. It is to be clear that all data is not evidence. All evidence is data. All evidence is data, like evidence is data, but all data is not evidence. So if you have seen a research paper which was done shabbily, written poorly, and published in a low standard journal, and you are not sure that it is the outcome which has been reported here are showing any truth over there, this research outcome is not evidence. So the major task is that we need to find evidence out of data, and the probability of finding evidence out of the large pool of data is 2%. Like we just get 2% of the researches which are evidence. So it is very important to have robust evidence, which should be called evidence. So this is my humble submission. Please do not call every data evidence, and please do not call every research activity an evidence-based activity. So evidence-based activity becomes exclusive in terms of its ability to work on a robust evidence. So here I am saying that the evidence that answers your well-built question. So this is the primary step in finding evidence, is that what is your research question? What is the question which is addressing to a policy context in the population? And how well the research question has been framed, and how well its inclusion and exclusion criteria has been developed, because it needs further exploration of evidence. So this is a very tedious task to develop a research question which is well-built question. Then we move to another step that is called critical appraisals of the identified studies which we find that they might be evidences. So the potential evidence researches are critically appraised in order to extract the real evidence. And then the question focuses identified problem, projection, experiment, quality, public safety, and the economics of procedures. Like there are basic premises that a research should be parsimonious. And if an identified evidence has been too extravagant, too expensive, unnecessarily expensive, it does not qualify, even if it is showing good research, because evidence-based policy champions in cost effectiveness. So if the economics of procedures are bad, we do not qualify this kind of evidence. Qualitative studies are also included, but there are certain criteria, like qualitative studies have been started to come into evidence-based approach in the later phase of the practice. Initially, it started with quantitative models. Okay, so which kind of studies we go for while we are looking for evidence? So case control studies, of course, cohort or follow-up or longitudinal studies, qualitative studies. So if we need to have more knowledge on these topics, I mean, a lot of information is already available. Randomized control trials, very important. Then meta-analysis for effect size and weight of the study. And then systematic review, which also contains meta-analysis if the systematic review has been on quantitative studies. Then meta-ethnography. This is a systematic review of qualitative studies, a new, slightly new approach in evidence-based knowledge. Now we have more sources which are kind of non-research sources of evidence. Previously, we were focusing on research sources. So ABP is more encompassing. Like, okay, we need to go pervasive and include more studies which qualify in the context, and so we need to go for research which are having different other categories like policymakers' experience. Okay, we go more critical and robust on the evaluation of these resources of evidence, but we do include these things like policymakers' experience, like their interviews are providing us data. Expert consensus, like experts working at different locations, we go for their consensus, or like Delphi studies, which provide further information in a certain this happens when a similar kind of intervention is being delivered to different locations, maybe within a country or around the world. So expert consensus is very much useful in developing new evidences. Quality assurance, quality improvement, risk data, professional standards of action or guidelines, cost data, benchmarking data, charge audits, consumer satisfaction reports. Consumer satisfaction reports is like the intervention which has been delivered to the populations and how well the populations of people have made most of, like, are they satisfied with the provisions. Like, if I would like to cite an example of a very famous intervention which was initially delivered in Mexico and then later it became quite popular around the world. It is called Progresa. It is conditional cash transfer to families, and it aimed at yes, Kazmi Sahab, I will be concluding first. It aimed at reducing poverty. So direct cash transfers were sent to the families. The program was quite successful. So the success of the program was evaluated with the help of these consumer satisfaction data. So there are many other sources of evidence which are non-research evidence. Now, it's very important to go for features of outcomes, and it does not conclude without specificity and sensitivity of it. I think I have missed one slide which might have been important. Sorry for that. So when we talk about outcomes, that what evidence-based policy delivers, first of all, very much important is precisely defined policies. That our policies are clearly defined and focusing, like they are hitting the bullseye, involves states and territories and various areas. It has refined description of social and scientific interventions, like the interventions which have already been delivered are refined and their approach is improved. Barriers and facilitators are very important to know. Like when government programs are delivered, it is very important to understand the barriers and the facilitators which are coming in while we are delivering the interventions. So evidence-based policy is always keeping a sharp eye on barriers and facilitators and including them according to subcontexts. Right. So specificity and sensitivity of interventions, like how well intervention is designed to be effective for certain community or subpopulation, and how well its effect could be transported to many other populations, subpopulations. It is specificity and sensitivity. Population competence is again another aspect. So I'm going fast because I got some more slides over here. So ultimately, evidence-based policy focuses that guidelines, proper guidelines, foolproof guidelines should be developed for the stakeholders, so that in future, when evidence-based interventions are delivered, those are not missing some important key points. Here, I would like to quickly skip these 4 slides ahead, which are showing that what is analytical approach is used mostly, like we already know, randomized control trials, meta-analysis, systematic review, and meta-ethnography. And I'm going to skip these 4 slides here because most of us know that what are these research methods and how well these research methods could be used in developing an evidence-based policy. So we have come to another section, that is tools of evidence synthesis. Primary tool is when we identify relevant studies, primary tool is critical appraisal, which help us to identify and refine trustworthy evidence. And for this, we use consolidated standards of reporting trial. There is another tool which is called critical appraisal skills program. These are the tools which are helping to refine the evidence with the help of critical appraisal. There are some international actors who are working in the area of evidence-based policy, the popularity of evidence-based policy. And I would like to mention some organizations like Cochrane Collaboration, Campbell Collaboration, EPPI, based in London, SHAR, which is in Sheffield, Evidence-Based Social Intervention, and EBM at Oxford. These are the prime organizations which actually register the systematic reviews and meta-analysis with them and properly guide them, so that if you are developing policy or refining a policy for your country, you are following the right direction. So that's a good contribution. Finally, I have got some bottom lines which might help to conclude this session here. Evidence-based methods facilitate to understand causation, correlation, and quantification, and the impact of elusive properties such as knowledge transfer. No need to explain. Like, evidence-based methods may help the governments to create positive environment for national development. Of course, it helps to develop positive environment. It promotes transparency. It promotes trust in the masses that what you are trying to do is honest and science-based. And then identification of clear objectives, facilitation of better means of communication, and opportunity to exchange knowledge improves when we deploy evidence-based policy in government programs. And ultimately, government policy making process achieves more clarity with evidence-based approach. This is what we want to achieve, and that helps to realize realistic development, logical development, and that is what we were trying to focus at in this presentation. That how well evidence-based policy is able to realize realistic and logical development in a country, particularly a growing economy like India. Thank you very much for your patience and listening. And if you have any queries later on, please note down my email ID here. And Now I'm ready to take any questions if you have. Thank you very much for today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Farooqui, for this very informative session by shedding light on evidence-based methods in governance and research policy making. You've given us a guideline on how to work towards a more developed India. Thank you so much, sir. However, as we are running short on time, I would request the participants to kindly put down their questions in the chat box or email them to us so that we can address them later. So
sure. That's a good idea.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much for having me here.
Hi, can you hear me?
Good afternoon. Moving on to our next lecture. We have with us Dr. Van Puspa Melati. Ma'am, please correct me if I am pronouncing it wrong.
No, it's perfect.
Thank you so much. She is the head of School of Liberal Arts and Social Sciences, Taylor's University, Malaysia. She has an immense knowledge of working with many grassroots empowerment and support group programs. She also has done a lot of community work with single mothers, children of low-income households, abused women and children, juvenile delinquents, transgendered individuals, and senior citizens, as well as the deaf community. Ma'am is also the Honorary Secretary for Malaysian Social Science Association and the regional representative for the International Sociological Association Research Committee for Clinical Sociology. Ma'am, it is an honor to have you with us. Today, ma'am will be presenting on the topic Community Mediators for a Developed Society. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much for your kind introduction, and hello everybody, good day. My name is a bit long, you can call me Melati, and today I'll be sharing a little bit about community mediation. So I'm also mindful of time, and should you have any questions, if I'm not able to manage that during this session also, I'll be more than happy to take this on a little bit later via email or through other interaction, okay? Let me just share my screen now. Can see my screen okay? Good?
Yes, it's perfectly all right.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Yes, so today I'll be talking a little bit about community mediation, and the topic that was given to me is on the developed society. So of course, looking into a perspective that this is where we're going, this is where a lot of other countries are really heading towards, and I think the whole event, developing New India, going into that direction, I think is great, and hence I would like to further champion this idea of doing community mediation because I truly believe in this. Okay. So let me just sort of give you a little bit of context or setting up the stage, how it is in Malaysia and how do we develop this and the current state that we do, and a little bit of comparative introduction of community mediation in other parts of the world. So in Malaysia itself, assuming that some of you might not be that familiar, as you know, Malaysia is a very, very diverse community. Of course, sometimes people like to talk about race in Malaysia, the main three categories, and then, you have like a little subcategories. But, I'm also a part of this other project that we are talking about super diversity to say that, our society is getting more and more complex by the day. So the issue of ensuring everybody can live harmoniously together is always a concern, from the policymakers to academics and even people, your daily interaction with people around you, because this can make or break the nation. So including, if you're a developed country, you are developed in so many areas in terms of economy, in terms of facilities, and yet if the people are not able to live together, that would be a huge concern. So that is the kind of angle that I'm coming into for today's session. So we oftentimes, when we talk about social issues in Malaysia or about relationships in Malaysia, one of the incidents that people like to link this to is the 13th of May 1969 tragedy in Malaysia, because this sort of, I wouldn't say marked, but that is one of the experience that is really unpleasant because it involving conflict between different racial categories at that point. Of course, if you look in the history, there's a lot of also political incitement and contributors to that. But essentially, it is about people not being able to live together. So during that unfortunate tragedy in 1969, as you can see in the picture, there's a lot of killing, there's a lot of burning, there's a lot of destroying that took place at time. The entire country was sort of in a lockdown where interaction was not possible to just minimize any other damages that's been done. So because it was so tragic, that was in 1969 in May, quickly soon after that in July 1969, the government set up the Department of National Unity, okay, because they realized how it is important to be able to manage people on the ground, right? And in 1979, they also set up what we call the Rukun Tetangga or Resident Associate. And these Resident Associate are appointed by the Department of National Unity. So they identify the people in the community and then they recognize them as the Resident Associate Order, leaders of the community. So they at least have one foot in each community. So if there's any problems in the community, they can feed back into the Department of National Unity. If the Department of National Unity wants to do any activity in the community, they would mobilize this resident associate. So, this is among the early works that was done. And then it was also further institutionalized through setting up institute like Institute of Ethnic Studies. This was set up in a national university in Malaysia in 2007. So the whole idea is to not wait until things get worse, for them to really understand. There's a lot of research that took place. There's a lot of recommendations to the government, what we can do to ensure that we sort of live together. And then in every university, before you graduate, you have to take at least this one module called ethnic relations, again, to promote the idea of togetherness despite our diversity, as well as national service program to link people up based on being a member of the nation and not split up by race. Okay, so this is sort of like the setting up stage where we were, and you will see that once that's sort of in place, now people are saying that what are the mechanisms that we have when the conflict do take place? Okay, so you have some proactive measures, great. But should there be conflict that still take place, what do we do? So of course, in a developed country, of course, oftentimes they will have very much legal procedures and action that will be taken place should there be any conflict or somebody is doing something that is against the legal, within the legal frame. But that is one way of doing things. And sometimes if things get out of hand, a lot of time they could even employ movement control order, for example, where, they really restrict who goes where, the kind of interaction that takes place. More other proactive measure that a lot of developed countries would engage in, and this is something that a lot of people should be investing in, is of course training and education, because you want to engage in proactive measure rather than resolve it when the conflict already breaks out, right? So of course, training and education is important. Social support group is important also in the community, because that's when they can sort of support one another, as well as counseling and therapy. So we usually hear these are among the kind of effort that can happen in a community where we are able to manage conflict. So why conflict in a community is so important is because, I guess just like India too, we are very much a collectivistic society, right? So it is all about living in a community. And sometimes when we live in a community, it is not just us, our family, our little family. So sometimes we stay with our aunts, our grandparents, and everybody knows everyone, and everybody's concerned one family's concern is everybody's concern in the community. So, this is why managing community is so important. I'm sure you would have heard like of cases where, sometimes it is just between two neighbors, one mother and another mother of another neighbor. But then that doesn't just happen like that. The mother would bring the son or would bring the husband. The other neighbor would bring the auntie or the uncle. And then the neighbor in front of the house would probably bring another set. And then things get out of proportion. You hear this over and over again in a community. And this is something that we would like to address, because when you live in a community and the community is so closely knit together, and you need to ensure that how do we manage this, and not managing it at that point itself, not just the issue itself, but how do we manage the issue and allowing them to live harmoniously together in the long run, right? So this is why I am to really further promote this idea of community mediation, because we have to manage it at the community level. So in the case of Malaysia, to further set up the stage, as what I mentioned just now, in 2007, the government, the Malaysian Department of National Unity and Integration, conducted this pilot project. Okay, so what's interesting about this pilot project is that this pilot project was spearheaded by our clinical sociology father in Malaysia. His name is Wan Halim Othman, or here we call him Datuk Dr. Professor Wan Halim Othman. So because he is trained a clinical sociologist, so his approach and his training takes on slightly different lens. Okay, so he came up with this 20 steps training program, and the training is done, as you see that, is with the Rukun Tetangga themselves. So these are what we call the resident associates. So this becomes, I'm not sure if I have other Malaysians in here or people who are trained legally. Community mediation is defined a bit differently by people who are legally trained versus a clinical sociologist like Datuk Wan Halim or myself. In the legal sense, when you talk about community mediation, usually you still try to resolve problems, but oftentimes it has to be, according to them, somebody who is trained with some legal knowledge. So if you don't have any kind of legal knowledge, so they find it really, at the initial stage, some people find it really, really irking when we are training Rukun Tetangga, the resident associate. These are the people who live in those communities. So that means usually they probably don't even go to tertiary education. They probably don't even have a degree, but the training was given is skill-based training to manage conflict in their community. Okay, so that was a very interesting way of doing things. So he trained the Rukun Tetangga, and then because Rukun Tetangga is slightly more developed communities, but we also then train the village leaders, okay, because again, this kind of community can affect them. So it started off with the main cities in Malaysia, Selangor, Johor, Kuala Lumpur, and Penang. And then the graduates of this program then set up association, Community Mediation Association. And this is still parked under the Malaysian Department of National Unity and Integration. Okay, so that was a stage, and that is how it sort of started off in Malaysia. And the kind of training that how it started off, again, comes from a sociological lens. The steps, the approaches, and how we manage it. And the selection of people is the people who are living in that particular community. So what is it really from our lens? What exactly is a mediator or community mediator? Okay, so basically, mediation is a process, okay, where you have parties. So it could be two groups of people. I mean, let's say usually conflict, you will have, let's say, two groups of people. Or it could be slightly more, it could have 3 or 4, but generally speaking, oftentimes it's between two groups of people. Now, let's say you have two groups of people and they have conflict. Now they have a third party, which is considered mediator. So this is like your middle person. Now, the middle person is there to facilitate. Okay, so this is very different approach than the people with legal background define community mediators. To them, oftentimes, if the mediators is part of it, the mediators plays quite a big role to decide which party is right or wrong. As a sociologist, we don't believe that, because it is between these two parties. All we have to do is to facilitate this process so that both sides or all the parties involved are in agreement with the outcome. Even though sometimes we think that the outcome is not fair, it's more biased to a certain group of people. But if both sides agree, then it's okay. So even cases like what can be seen like a real small case where let's say here urban poverty, right? Here in Malaysia, if we have certain groups of people in certain pockets in Kuala Lumpur, so sometimes just because somebody throw rubbish and accidentally or not accidentally, it falls in front of their house, or they put it slightly neighboring into the neighboring house, that in itself sometimes can become a huge issue. Or a tree, somebody wants to cut the tree, one neighbor agrees, another neighbor don't agree. So sometimes it can start off with something seems quite trivial, but if that is affecting them, the conflict can really blow up, right? So when we have a mediator, somebody who comes in the middle and just allowing the both sides to come to a conclusion which is acceptable to both sides, usually you will not see this problem escalate. Okay, so we also believe that the person to be a mediator, ideally it is not people who are so-called the experts, just because we have a PhD in sociology, hence I would be the best person to go to the community and deal with it. Ideally speaking, we should empower the members of the community, the leaders of that community, because they have a good relationship in that community. The people look up to them, so their status could be received probably because of their seniority, but it can also be because of their authority within that particular community. So either way, it should be somebody of that community, and oftentimes it is somebody who is highly regarded in the community, right? And again, it is not the aim to say who's right, who's wrong. That is not the position of a community mediator, but rather, how do we facilitate to ensure that both sides agree, and then that can improve their social relations. Okay, so that is the kind of context that I'm getting at. So how this is being shaped and being practiced, this is not something new for sure. You can draw a lot of earlier readings and scholarly work that people have done on community mediation. But one really starting difference is how it is being practiced. Okay, so by conceptually, people understand that it could be from the legal perspective, where they just try to resolve the problem out of court, and they just don't have to go to court, but it is still with somebody with a legal trained background, so therefore it would be sort of like a simulation of a court anyway. But for people who thinks that it will be done by members of the community and all like that, even then there is still variation in terms of how it is being practiced. So for example, Wall and Bloom in their research in 1991, they look at 97 mediators, and what they found out is that a lot of times the mediators in China tend to be more involved in doing assisting strategies. Okay, so you don't have a job. Okay, then they try to mediate, they try to find employer, and try to work around it so that then these people could get a job, and try to manage any expectations and things that they don't know, help them to educate, and things like that. Or even things like replace a broken flower pot, that there is some form of conflict, somebody broke the flower pot, they take part into it, and even replacing flower pot, for example. So that's a slightly different way of managing things. And according to this research also, they found out that those mediators tend to control a little bit more of a situation. Okay, so that means, let's say if between two groups of people, they are having conflict, so they are the one in the middle to say, okay, now you talk. Okay, no, now you talk, you wait, you listen. They're trying to control that a little bit more. In Korea, studies by Kim and his friends in 1993, they look at mediators in South Korea. So what they found out is that the strategy that oftentimes employed by the mediators there are usually what they call the reconciliation strategy. Okay, so this is closer to what I was mentioning about just now, asking the two parties to say, okay, what do you want? What do you want? And just getting them to work it out. Okay, and and it's interesting that you see that, you know, there is some form of cultural aspects there where, you know, why don't you just apologize? Why don't you try to improve your relationship? You know, they try to focus a little bit more on that. And a study that was done in Singapore, then the approach is where they listen to the disputant, gather information, and then they try to really mediate the situation and facilitate the process. So this is relatively similar to what's happening in Malaysia as well as Japan. Okay, so this is just a little bit of comparison. Okay, and it's also interesting that, you know, I mean, for academics in here, so oftentimes we like to link this to see, you know, again, this is not a new concept. This has historical root in cultural teachings, in cultural practices. So the ones in Malaysia, for example, the concept of suluh in Islam. Okay, so the concept of suluh, and this is also employed not in general sense among the Muslims, but that is also being adapted by the legal practitioners too. Okay, so the idea that we should resolve conflict amicably by discussion. So this is very much in line with the idea of community mediation. So if you have members of the community who are not happy working with one another, and how best do we bring them together, is getting them to come together and discuss it, and doesn't necessarily have to go to court. They could discuss it and try to resolve it. In Japan, China, and Korea, it has its roots in Confucius teachings. So again, Confucius teachings are oftentimes promote mediation over litigation, because you know that where you do mediation, it is more peaceful rather than this whole battling process through the legal system. And in India, you know, the concept of panchayat, or the council of elders, for example, all these inform, this kind of concept inform the kind of community mediation that I am promoting, because again, this is not a new concept, but why aren't we not doing this when here in Malaysia, we have seen how this has helped a lot of communities to manage their conflicts within the society. Okay, so just to sort of like before I, you know, end this, just to highlight again, why the need for mediation. Number one is to create mechanism. It's very, very important that, you know, sometimes experts are carried away. People who are authority, or people who are politicians, get carried away, feeling that we know better, that, you know, it's a top-down instruction, that we go in there trying to help them and save them. But generally speaking, what we really want to do is to create mechanism where if that community are able to manage conflicts using this system, then they will be able to constantly overcome any issues at hand. And again, you don't have to constantly bring things to the police station or to the court system. We can create that mechanism in that particular community. Second part is from mediation to negotiation. Oh, sorry, that's a little typo there. So from mediation to negotiation. So what we really want to do is that through mediation process, we want the members of the community to really negotiate what do they want and what can they give up on, and how they can work together to reach a conclusion. And this is a very important skill that not just individuals have, but members of the community in general should have. You would want them to be able to voice it out, reach to an amicable solution. Again, ideally, get to the third point, community empowerment. Ideally, the community are self-sustained. They are able to manage these issues on their own, regardless of whatever issues that come in hand. Again, oftentimes, if things goes to the police station or things goes to the court, sometimes the issue is being resolved, but it might not leave good taste in people's mouth, because if they lost the case, now they might still have some vengeance. They might still not be happy. And yet you live next to the other person that you just lost the case to. You can see how this would maybe resolve the issue at that point, but you will see how that doesn't help the community to be whole, to be strong as a community, because if it is not something that they are agreeable to, then in long run, it is just a matter of triggers. We have seen that in some of the communities here in Malaysia, in some communities where every single issue is the police coming in, everything that you go to court, or it's not even being managed at all. Then you'll see that those kind of communities are constantly walking on thin ice. Any little incitement affect the entire community, you know. So this is why I strongly promote the idea of community mediation. Okay, so I think that is all that I want to share. Again, my name is Melati. This is my email address. Do stay in touch, and if you have any other questions, do let me know. Okay, I'll give it back to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Melati, for your valuable time and valuable inputs and such an elaborative description of mediation. We have 2 questions that needs to be addressed. So if you allow, we may discuss the questions.
Yes, I can, but I probably only have 5 minutes. I'll try to run this quickly. I'm sorry, because I have one more event after this. Okay. In the chat. Okay, how do you differentiate between mediation and negotiation? Oftentimes it's two. Yes, correct. So negotiation is part of that mediation process. So in this mediation process, we have, as I mentioned just now, we have about 20 steps for this mediation process. Okay, so you know, it is from them going and what we call like outreach and getting to know, and then understanding the impact before you start talking and all like that. So you have this like 20 steps on what you can do as part of a mediation process. And of course, as part of when they're doing the discussion, one part of it is a negotiation process. Okay, so yes, oftentimes people use this interchangeably, but mediation is a full-on process. In our case, and the steps that we have identified, there's 20 steps. So for example, if you are asking because this is something that you're really interested in doing in your community, for example, you know, we can chat further. You know, I can also link you up with Dr. Wan Halim Uthman, for example, if this is something that you want to establish there, because yes, it sounds the same, but it is not. Mediation is a full longer process. You have like other steps to it. Negotiation is part of it. So I hope that answers that question. Second one, what are some of the first-hand challenges and difficulties that you face during the process of mediation and community problem solving? Okay, so for example, like in my case, I personally don't have much challenges per se, but what I do notice by people who are engaging in community mediation, especially at the earlier stage, you know, after they train and then they start to manage cases, right? So of course, number one of the main things that we often get is that they feel very overwhelmed. Okay, so for example, right, there was this case where so there was this case where when they engaged with the community, the conflict was between 2 big groups of people. On one side, there's about like 15 people. Another side, you have like 20 people. And when they come and, you know, they were like shouting and all like that. So how do you keep yourself composed in that kind of a situation, and being able to manage? Now you have like 40 people. Usually it's easier when you have like one-on-one and you're just a middle person. Okay, you get this person to talk and, you know, you get them to solve. But in reality, in communities, especially in communities of high risk communities, let's say urban poverty, low income household, you know, so sometimes things can get really escalated really, really quickly. So sometimes that is definitely one of the main challenges among community mediators that I know. Another one is that they sometimes feel the need to take sides, because I think how we are trained is usually that, right? When somebody tells you something, you make a judgment or you want to try and correct the situation. Withholding that, I think, is another real challenge among community mediators, because people, sometimes we feel that we are doing the right thing, we're really trying to help people, but for a community mediator, you shouldn't be doing that. You should go in to facilitate. You are, even though you have a PhD or you're a professor or you're highly qualified and highly trained, by the end of the day, that case is theirs. They are the expert. They are the ones that is making decision, because they are the ones that are going to be living with it. So withholding that is also another challenge. So if you are interested to read a little bit more, I wrote one article, I think in 2020, a little bit on the challenges. So if you're interested, pop me an email. I'll share with you that article that has a little bit of data based on the groundwork that I've done before. Okay, I hope that answers your question.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I think the answers have been very clearly answered. Thanks for your valuable time and your input.
Thank you so much. Take care, everybody. Have a good weekend.
With this, we move forward to our final speaker of the session, Dr. Sheikh Abdul Rahman, Chairperson, International Skill Development and Entrepreneurship Council. The topic of the lecture will be Industrial Revolution 4.0 and Future Skills for Developed India. To briefly introduce, Dr. Sheikh Abdul Rahman has an experience of more than 25 years of blended industries and academics. He's traveled 4 continents covering 65 countries. He has a PhD in CSR, Corporate Social Responsibility, and a PhD in IT Cybersecurity. He has worked as global resource in Siemens, Germany, Nokia, Finland, and Microsoft in UAE, to name a few. He has also been awarded with eminent awards by UNO, Siemens, Nokia, etc. He has also attended various business courses and workshops across the globe. With this, I would want to invite Dr. Sheikh Abdul Rahman and hand over the platform.
Hello, everyone. Very good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where we are logging in from. I hope I'm audible to all of you.
Yes, Dr. Rahman, you're audible.
Yeah, so it seems I'm having some problem with my video, but still I can share my screen. If you can kindly allow me to share the screen.
Sure, sir.
So very good day, everyone. So today I shall be speaking about the future skills and the Industrial Revolution 4.0. A quick introduction, though my introduction has already been given. This is myself. Basically, I'm pretty much spent almost more than 2 decades in the industries. Back in India since 2014, and I've been serving academic industries and working very closely with different academic institutions in India, as well as international universities, both in Asia Pacific region, CIS region, as well as MEA region, Middle East and Africa region. So with that short introduction, let me move on to the slide deck about Industrial Revolution 4.0. I hope most of you are aware about Industrial Revolution. We have seen the different phases of Industrial Revolution with the different timelines from 1970s to 1980s to 1990s, and now we are into 4th Industrial Revolution. So let me start with the first one. Industrial Revolution 1.0, the first industrial revolution, used water and steam power to mechanize the production. So this is somewhere in the early 1970s. From there, we move on to IR 2.0, the second revolution, which used electric power to create mass production. That is, again, in the beginning of 80s, we are talking about. Moving to 3.0, in 90s, we move from electrical mass production to electronics and information technology with the automation. That was 3.0. Now the whole industry, the world is actually transforming to 4.0. This revolution, Industrial Revolution 4.0, is very critical, very important for each one of us who are there right now in the conference, those who are in the industries, those who are into educational sector. So for each of us, this revolution 4.0, it's a massive revolution basically which is coming in. And this third revolution basically, it is all about the physical, digital, and the biological spheres. So all these three spheres are going to merge with 4.0. So mostly, most of us have heard about, already 5G is coming in, right? Industrial revolution is very much linked to, the technologies evolution which is happening right now. As we see today that, during the COVID and post-COVID, the way we used to work before COVID and the way we are working today, there is a paradigm shift into our working culture, into our educations, into industrialization. We never thought of, there will be something called WFH, work from home, right? So now we move from, that has become a new normal for all of us, most of us, right? Classes are happening online, events are happening online, industries allowing the employees to work online, the shared resources are mostly working from home. So this revolution 4.0 is pretty much talking about our everyday activity. It is going to talk about our everyday activities which are related to our work culture. It is related to the technological sphere. It's related to about the physical. As I said, as we can see in a single word, we can say it will be fusion of technology that will be blurring the line between the physical, digital, and biological world. We'll see in the coming slide basically the impact of 4.0. Let me add one more very important point over here. Is Industrial Revolution 4.0 also addresses the intervention of technology into every aspect of our life today. So it is pretty much it is human centric. The Industry 4.0 is human centric. Earlier revolutions we see 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0, they were related to the industries. But 4.0 is human centric. It is talking about you and me. It is talking about how we work, how we live, how we interact with the technology in future. So today I would say that the study says today globally we are having about 10 billion devices connected to the internet. 10 billion devices connected to the internet globally. Whereas in future, that is by 2030, there is a projection that it says there will be 30 billion devices connected to the internet. So we are talking about multi-fold growth into innovation, into AI, into AML, into ML, AR, VR, all those technologies are coming in. Industries are going to be, fully connected. And there will be huge revolution, which the world has not witnessed in last any period of past. We have not witnessed this kind of, the revolution which is going to come with 4.0. So that is Industrial Revolution 4.0. Let me shed some light on it. As I said, IR 4.0 is human centric. It is not about industries. It is very much about you and me. It is very much about, how we work, how we live, how we act in future. So I would not be wondering that in future, if if we all will be, having an integrated chip in our body, wherein instead of carrying our identity card or, the passport, we might not be, using a passport to, to intertransfer between one border to another border. For example, in Dubai, if I go today, if I am a local resident, I would not be needing passport. I would just use the Emirates ID to check in and check out from the country through immigration gate. So there is a very much possibility that in future we might not be even carrying any physical device. So that is the revolution we're talking about here. So when I say it is human-centric, it is about you and me. It's about the technological integration and intervention in all sphere of our life. So that is 4.0. So what, as a glimpse to understand very quickly what's going to happen. We are going to, move from hierarchy to hierarchy infrastructure. We are going to move from jobs to tasks. So, today we see in the Western world, we already have, people who work there, they are actually working on tasks on hourly basis. Wherein in Asia Pacific, in India, we are having culture of, the job. So that terminology is going to change in future. So from 8 by 5 to 10 by 4, we will be moving from microscope to data scope. Data will be king in future. Anyone who holds data will be the king in the market. So if you all heard recently that Twitter being sold out, right? Can anyone in this call say that what has been sold to the buying company? What is being actually sold? When we say that Twitter is being sold out, what is being sold here? Can anyone comment on this point? What is being sold and what is being purchased? No comment? We are having 70+ audience. Anybody? Twitter has been sold out for a few $1 billion, right? So what actually being sold there? Yeah, I know it's a a one-way presentation, but I'm just trying to understand basically, if we are all in line. Yeah, I can see Abhay is saying data, personal information of customer and users, data. Yeah, pretty much that is the case. Yeah. So you see, for this, this huge amount, which is being, offered by Elon Musk for Twitter, is actually primarily for the data. So data is new currency in future. So we are actually moving to that era. So we are moving from computer technology to AI ML. In future, we might be having, the driverless cars, for example. I can give many examples. One of the examples is we might be having driverless cars very soon in the country. So we will not be needing drivers, to drive the car. You just sit in the car, give the destination where you want to reach, just sit and relax. You will be reached to the destination. So we are heading into that era, right? We are moving from centralized to decentralized structure. So of course, from suits to hoodies, very open culture open working culture will be there, from cubics to coaches, from free Wi-Fi to Wi-Fi free world. So today we see that a lot of places where there is mentioned, when you check into hotel, you get access to free Wi-Fi. In future, we will be basically having a Wi-Fi free world. That's how the technology will connect each of us. Every device ours will be connected, whether we are having devices at home, whether we are having devices at office, whether we are having industrial devices, they call OT or IoT. So all those will be connected. So as I said, there will be a big revolution of data connect, devices connect in future. We are going to move in a very short span of time. We are going to move from 10 billion devices to 30 billion devices in the world. So it will be a completely connected world we are going to move into. So again, as you see, there are different examples I can give, on how basically the world is transforming. As we all witness, right? We never imagined that, 10 years before, that we will be so much online, we will be using so many services online today as we are using, right? Even in fact, before COVID also, we never thought that schools can go online. We never thought education system can go online. We never thought, they used to, I used to, when I was in Germany, for every meeting, we used to physically travel. Even just for a day meeting from all the way from Dubai, I used to travel to Kuwait, to Dubai, to Saudi, to Oman. It was just about a day meeting. We used to travel. So that concept has totally changed now, right? So we are actually passing through a transformational change. It's happening right now as we speak, almost in every sphere of life. Those changes are coming, and this industrial revolution is going to hit big time. So there would be a culture of entrepreneurship in future, as we see from mass production to meat production. What you produce, what you sell, what you have in mind, that the idea which you want to push into market. So there will be a huge revolution. The revolution which is coming in, it is going to impact each of us. So earlier we used to have the recycling stuff, and that used to be a burden for the government. Now we are seeing that there will be a circular economy connected to it. Yeah. So what are we talking about? We are actually talking about impacting all industries and all sectors. Irrespective of which sector it is, they will be impacted because of the Industrial Revolution 4.0. So whichever industry you are related to, you need to basically see that what transformation is coming in, how that is going to impact my sector, your sector. You need to look at from that angle. Okay. So we had a snapshot of what we discussed is we had a mechanized revolution, one that was 1.0 in 1784. Then 1870 we had electrical. After electrical came in, we had mass productions, industries started working. 3.0, that was again, it is 1989, not 69, it is 1989, and that was the internet revolution. Now 4.0, we are basically, although the assessment says 10-time impact of the Industrial Revolution 4.0 on the industry, I would say that it will be 100%, not 10%. Almost everything is going to change in next decade, right? So earlier it was empowering corporations, but now it is empowering people. So you and me have an equal opportunity to become an entrepreneur, to become a startup, to go to market. You can come up with innovative idea and launch the tech startup. We see today unicorns are coming in globally. And let's just take an example of, for example, Ola or Uber or Oyo. In fact, if you look at them, that they does not own. Ola does not own a single car, I would say. Looking at the mass business they have, wherein in fact they own every car in the city, in the country, whoever is connected with them. So that kind of model we are moving in. Similarly, if you look at Oyo model is same. They does not own the hotels, but almost every hotel they own. I have a very good and interesting video to play, but I'm not sure if I have that much time. Will I have some time to play of like 3 minutes or 5 minutes video? The convener, please. Or shall I move on with the slide deck, and then if time permits, shall I put up the video?
I think that would be the better way, that you finish and thereafter you can show your video.
Sure. Like anyway, if time permits, I have a small video to play. Let me continue with the slide deck. Yeah. So the fourth industrial revolution, we stand on the brink of technological revolution that will fundamentally alter the way we live, work, and in its scales, scope, and complexity, the transformation will be, unlike anything which humankind have ever experienced. As I said earlier, we are actually transforming. Now I'm not sure if you have, how many of you are actually coming from the academic industry. BBC already started seeing that education 4.0 is coming in, which is very much attached to Industrial Revolution 4.0. On one side, we are having Industrial Revolution 4.0. On the other hand, Education 4.0 is hitting. So earlier, students, they used to carry the bags, they used to go to the universities, come back and, stay at home, again, go back to the university. That's what we used to do. That's how we studied in the past. Now this revolution actually going to, Education 4.0 is actually going to shake up the entire education system that we have in place today. Although NEP 2020 is addressing that, but still there will be a lot of fundamental changes. Our education framework is actually, transforming. We are moving from academic credit framework to skill credit framework, or in fact, I would say the unified credit framework. So that's a quick introduction about 4.0. So, of course, it's a new chapter in human development, merging the physical, digital, and biological world, as I said. So it is actually going to bring all these three spheres of life, the physically, how we, our industries are today operating, our academic institutions are operating, how they will be basically connected to the digital world, and what will be the impact and intervention of the biological world, the human beings, how they will be basically connected. As I gave you a few examples, that there will be a blurring line between this technological, spheres, where they are going to merge these three major domains. And of course, on one side, it has opportunities. On the other side, there is a huge threat too. Today we see that artificial intelligence, there are a lot of research is going on globally on AI, ML, wherein on one side we see that of course AI is going to give a major break to the industry. On the other hand, it's a big threat too. The threat is there is a prediction. It says that AI will take over the human intelligence. Of course, there is a different dimension to sit down and discuss on that subject, but there are research scholars, they are afraid of the way AI is getting integrated into technology, into the day-to-day our life. And in future, there will be a huge impact of it. We are talking about the robots, we are talking about AI, ML, we are talking about augmented reality, virtual reality. All those things are coming in. And at once, it is actually going to impact. Once this 5G is rolled out across the country, or in fact, I would say globally, we started seeing that already the devices which we are using are 5G compatible. So what industry is waiting for? A required bandwidth. The industry is waiting for the required bandwidth by the telecom operators or the ISPs. Once we get that required bandwidth or mobile, there will be a transformational change into all these industries and sectors. So the fourth industrial revolution, there are different areas to glance at. We're talking about agile technology governance. We are talking about agency and trust, who to trust, how to trust, because most of the things in future will be automated. The system has to have an intelligence in place. There will be a lot of cyber security threats. There will be a lot of information security threats. There will be a lot of data prevention issues. So there will be a lot of technological intervention in all spheres of life. So as we see, a glimpse of this, transformation, industrial transformation 4.0, it is actually touching every aspect, every sphere of our life. Yeah, ethics and identities are being built up on 4.0. How and what ethics to be followed globally, so that technology should not take over the human intelligence, or the laws and regulation has to be in place for the global community to work together. Technology access and inclusion, what is allowed, what is not allowed. Then we're also talking about disrupting jobs, demanding new skills. So disrupting jobs will have a huge impact, because every revolution has, it has a potential to disrupt the existing, technologies. Yeah. In fact, as I said, Industrial 4.0 revolution is unlike any other revolution in the past. 1.0 had an impact only on the industries. It moved from manual to steam-based engines. Then the second revolution, it moved from a steam-based engine to electrical production, the mass production. So that again had an impact on the industry. Third a revolution was basically about intervention of computers into our day-to-day activities. I don't know how many of you remember, when computers being introduced in India, there were a lot of protests. I remember in early 90s, late 80s and early 90s, there were a lot of protests saying that computers will take away our jobs. So that disruption will be there always, when the new industry revolution or when the new technology comes in and hit the market, there will be a lot of disruption. What we need to basically do is we need to be prepared. How we are going to take benefit out of it, how we will ensure that there is less impact on resources, less impact on jobs, less impact on our activities, what we do. So there are, and like every topic has a detailed discussion. Since we don't have much time, I will rather pass a little quick. As I give an example here, agile technology. Agile technology talk about agile governance. It talks about Internet of Things. It talks about 5G. It talks about digital communication. It talks about sustainable development goals, eradication of poverty. It talks about global governance. It talks about global citizenship. There will be cybersecurity intervention. So different areas, each area has got an in-depth subject, and again that subject itself is, like for example, if you look at the blockchain on the leftmost, the second from the left, the blockchain is actually it revolutionized the entire our economy system. We are moving from paper currency, we move to plastic currency, from plastic currency we move to digital currency, from digital currency now we move to crypto, we are moving to cryptocurrency, right? So this kind of transformation will basically come in. So each subject in itself is having a huge detailing about it. And then coming down to agency and trust, again it's talking about different areas of how basically we are going to put our ecosystem in a way that the governance of the whole system which is going to be implemented, either it is within company, it is intra company, it is within state or within country or internationally, those systems has to be in place so that we can positively utilize the technologies. Again, technology and innovation, we see almost every day some or other new technologies are hitting the market. 3D printing is on boom. We see that drones are started coming in. In fact, today I have read the news. It says in Saudi Arabia, the NEO project, they have announced to use the drone, driver cars. So this is we are seeing every day, right? Nowadays, if you see that a lot of new technologies are coming in all sphere of our life. If you talk about healthcare industry, there are a lot of changes are happening into the healthcare industry. For example, we started talking about robotic surgeries. We started talking about AI-based diagnosis. We started already using online consultation. So this intervention, this technological intervention is, as we speak, it is happening every day. The general purpose technology like AI can have a profound consequences for society, which I was discussing some time before, right? So we need to be basically, seeing how and which area we can contribute and take a right benefit, right advantage of this transformation, and bringing in that to our community, to the student community, to the academics, how best and what would be the way forward. That has to be, brought in by, of course, the experts, industry experts. Sit down, look at how, this transformation can positively move forward. So I don't want to go more into detail about, the more specific areas. Maybe, we will have some more time for Q&A. So this is 3D printing. Almost, a future, there is a huge demand for 3D printing in all sphere of our life. Similarly, I talk about healthcare. Again, healthcare is actually have transformed from 1.0, 2.0, 3.0 to 4.0, wherein we are talking about AI-based precision medicine treatments. We are talking about telemedicines. Again, here also I have a small video. Let's see if we have time permit. We will watch one of the video for a minute or two. Then there are emerging technologies and career opportunities from 2020 to 2025. there are a lot of opportunities in AI. There are a lot of opportunities in, machine learning, data science, UI, UX, cybersecurity, cloud computing, blockchain. You just name it. There are a lot of, technological intervention will be there in every industry. World Economic Forum talks about what is declining and what is growing, what is inclining, areas. So 2022 skill outlook. World Economic Forum says that there will be a lot of opportunity industries which will go down. For example, it also says that students who are entering into kindergarten now, they will not see the jobs. 80% of them will not see the jobs which exist today. So that is very scary. We need to be basically ready and prepared for the future. So finally, this is an example. I have a lot of examples to also give. For example, Nokia, we have seen what has happened with Nokia. We have seen the ambassador car in India. So if we don't adapt to the change, if we resist the change, then you will be bypassed, we will be bypassed. The change will come. It's not that change will not come since we are resisting it. Change will come. And you see on the right side, if you don't want to change, then you will be left behind, and there will be, the way will be carved out for the technology to move forward. So as I said, few examples we already had, like Nokia. Although I was in Nokia Siemens in the past, in fact, I was not in the devices division, I was into the telecom infrastructure division, but we have seen that the management not took the right decision of adopting to Android. So they said we had Symbian, we don't want to change to the new technology. And today we see that the market leader who was holding more than 35% share, global share in the market, they are totally out from the market. Yeah. So with the last note, arrival of fourth revolution is distinct one when compared to the previous revolutions. So 4.0 is evolving at an exponential rather than a linear pace, with the velocity, scope, and system impact all over our lives. And it is disrupting, it's going to disrupt the existing technologies. That is the very important point we need to look at. So whoever in whatever industries are here in the group now in the call, or whatever industries we belong to, there will be technological intervention. So kindly ensure that we keep an eye open, keep ourselves up to date with the technological change, and also, we adapt to what is coming in, what is the change which is coming in. So I think with that, I think my session is done. If the questions are there, I am trying to join from my mobile so that I can also see you guys. I'm talking about technology. It should not be that I'm not visible to you guys.
Thank you, sir. As of now, I don't think so. We have any questions. But yes, we have some suggestions. We have some viewpoints.
So no questions?
No questions so far, but Mr. Azim has shared a point that digital technology and business connect people, also reduces the basic human values to a healthy, happy life and be physically active. Sir,
all right.
Connected with two devices, so there is an echo.
Yes, I disconnected the first one.
Yes.
I disconnected the first one. No, I said it would not be fair if I don't show up saying that my device video is not working and I'm talking about innovation and technology.
Yes.
So that's the reason I have to move. All right, guys, if no questions, I think I'm done.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rahman, for giving us an insight into how technology is a blessing, a boon, as well as a disadvantage in today's time. And where we are becoming dependent on technology, we also have to learn to maintain that balance somewhere.
Yeah. Yes,
So
yes.
thank you so much, sir, for enhancing our knowledge with actual facts and figures and giving us such an elaborative presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
With this, we come to the end of our series of lectures for today. And now we will be concluding this session. And I would like to invite Mr. Sajid Hussain Kazmi to come on the platform and give a vote of thanks to our speakers.
Thank you very much, respected speakers, including the senior professors, senior professionals, Professor Abbas Ali Mehdi sir, Professor Zaidi sir, Principal Shia PG College, then my colleague and my contemporary organizing secretary, Professor Aga Parvez Masih sir, and last but not the least, the management and the
You are on the hold, Sajid sir.
Sorry for the technical glitch. So I was extending my thanks to all the managing committee and the organizing committee. Just a minute, I'm getting the echo. Okay, so this is how the technology might create some glitches, but we can overcome. So just after the recess, we will be coming back and convening the technical sessions, the scientific sessions, where in the research work will be shared by the upcoming and budding researchers. We have 8 technical sessions lined up, 4 to be run parallelly. So 8 simultaneous scientific sessions will be there. I hope that all the research scholars are available, and as per the slots, because the slots and the schedule has already been shared to all of you. So please adhere to the guidelines. The guidelines clearly have been mentioned that only 5 slides are required, and that 5 minutes of the time interval will be given, and 2 minutes for the discussion of the results and all these things. So please adhere to the timelines, and the session chair and co-chairs will be assessing your performance. Based on that, we will be coming up with the final merit list, and the award ceremony will be declared in the valedictory session. So let's wind up this session so that we can rejoin after the lunch. Thank you very much.
What is the time for the lunch resumption of this? Because we are already running late, 20 minutes. At what time we should resume?
Yes, sir. We will be starting by 1:30 p.m. sharp, as per the schedule.
1:30 means that only after 10 minutes.
Yes, sir. Only after 10 minutes. The links are different, and they have already been shared with all the participants.
Okay. Fine.
Thank you very much.